This is We All Be News-Free Dixie for the 21st century. See how it works? Somewhere. Can you dig it?
And so just want you to know. Man, I looked at that smile on your face just now. And the first time I ever wished I was a photographer to take that picture and let the world see that honesty and that integrity. And know some of the things I know, how you drive all over the country to chase us down. Chase us down. Okay? We move so fast. I don't know if you're married, I don't know if you're a family, I don't know if you're a wife. Okay? But when we get on here, we bosom friends. Anytime I see you, I stop whatever I'm doing. Hey, my man, how are you? Hey. Hey, man, what, that's, I owe that to you. It's an obligation that you have. How old are you?
Oh, 36.
So you don't have the right to do what 36 people do. You don't have the right to go to the dance or go to the party. You don't have a right to take that trip to Europe when I might need that plane fare to fly somebody else to feed my people that love me. Mm-hmm. You feed them. Oh, it's one thing being hungry from food. Right. There's another thing being hungry for information.
Yes, sir.
And that's you to feed her. You got to be the farmer. You got to grow the crop. Huh? You got to till the grain. And at nighttime, when you hear something that sounds like water, you got to go see if the crop's going to be flooded. That's your job, man.
Hey, everybody, this is Brother Ron. I am asking you all to do me a big favor. Think about supporting the We All Be movement. Your donation is tax deductible. The We All Be Group Incorporated is a recognized 501c3. And I'm just asking you all because I want to keep on bringing y'all quality work through the way that I know how to do best. And I'm going to sing my praises and toot my horn. A lot of y'all were not hip to Dick Gregory until Brother Ron brought him on the We All Be platform, until that jingle review we did. Y'all seen another side of Judge Joe Brown, and Judge Joe Brown's message has been amplified. But it was We All Be that brought Judge Joe Brown to y'all back in 2014, and so many others. And we covered so many things. So help us out so we can help you all. Peace.
Guess who's back? Back again. Brother Ron. Tell a friend. Guess who's back and still black? Guess who's back and still black? Guess who's back and still black? Blickety, blickety, black. It's Brother Ron. Thank y'all for tuning out to tune in, to get in where you fit in. This is We All Be News-Free Dixie for the 21st century. Yeah, it's been a long time, but not really a long time. Time is flying. Time be flying, y'all. We all be flying. Just get in where you fit in. This is a great time to be alive. It don't seem like it is. I remember I went to the doctor today, and they do a wellness check when you go to the doctor now. When you go to my personal physician, they'll give you a sheet to fill out to see, if you if you ain't depressed, or if you are depressed. And it's weird because, you look at the questions, it's kind of like it's tricky. It's tricky because you answer one way, But you saying, well, I do feel bad every now and then, but the way they word it is like you feel bad a lot. If you answer like that, then to be honest, like I told the nurse aide or the nurse, everybody's depressed and on some level because it's very depressing. It's like I know where I work at, they call themselves doing us a favor by raising the minimum wage from $10 an hour to $13 an hour. That was they did. Oh, it's just a big step in the right direction, raising the minimum wage from $10 an hour to $13 an hour. I remember I was working in the hallway as the janitor, as the cleaner, and one of the people, a young, bright-eyed, idealistic white man, a decent white dude, a young white dude. He ain't been at human resources for I want to say about 8 months. He said, "Did you get y'all raise?" I said, "Excuse me?" He said, "Did y'all get a raise?" I said, I think so. He said, "Well, make sure and let us know, or let me know if you didn't, because y'all should have got it." And I said, "Oh, I appreciate your concern, sir." He said, "Well, that's the least we can do because, quite frankly, that's not really enough to live on. And it's not really enough to live on. If people were better educated about what minimum wage should be, minimum wage should be close to $30 an hour. So, you work all your life. It's funny how the world works. I don't know if a lot of y'all realize that majority of the world people are impoverished under this so-called system of this ease. The majority of people are not wealthy. It's just a very, very small percentage of the human population that controls the majority of the wealth, right? So you got a lot of hardworking poor people and broke people. There's a lot of wealthy people. They don't work hard. Their money, their investments work for them. They don't work for their money. Their money work for them. Their investments work for them. It's weird. I was talking to a nurse today about the situation, right? About the minimum wage. And she said she tried to get a loan. Like, she has no debt. She has no debt. And yet she couldn't get a loan from Bank of America. Even though she's been banking there for over 10 years. Has no debt, has no student loan debt, young woman, early 30s, good looking sister, young woman. She's like she got a level head about herself, could not get a loan because she didn't have no debt. It's weird how that works, but yet these same banks can take your money out of your account and invest your money to make money for themselves, for their institutions. But you could bank at these banks for a decade or decades, and they still not see you worthy enough to give a loan, even though they're loaning your money out for their investments. This is a cruel. I didn't say cold, cruel world to live in, especially if you so-called blackity black American, not any other black. I mean, I talked to a Haitian American, first generation Haitian American. He's like a good brother from Georgia, but he'll tell me about how people came from Haiti, his mama and them generation, and how they was able to secure decent loans from the bank, was able to, create businesses and opportunities for themselves, and how they frown down upon the so-called, what y'all like to call foundational Black America or A.L.L, American descendants of slaves. And then he had to correct them and say, look, y'all got chances that these Black Americans did not get. He gave them historical analysis. He had to break his kinfolks down about why they shouldn't be putting down Black Americans, because they have a Black privilege that Black Americans do not have in this country. Country. You understand? So it's funny. It was Dr. King's generation, the civil rights generation, that fought for these immigrants to come over and take advantage of things that we as Black Americans, we as descendants of American slaves, we as foundational Black Americans, we who have been over here before 1600 could not and still cannot take advantage of. This is a weird time for us. So we had this conversation, me and this young lady, about this stuff. It makes you want to holler, for $1. But like I was telling you, like the way we making money is like it's like a lottery. You pick what bills you're gonna pay for that month because you can't live off of what they're paying us. There is no way where everything is going up and wages are going down that you can really survive. Keeping your head above water, good time. And speaking of good times, it's not amplified blessings and prayers to John Amos. JJ Daddy from Good Times, John Amos, McDuff's, whatever, we call it McDuff's, whatever it was on Coming to America Classic. He is hospitalized in Memphis, Tennessee. From my understanding from reports, he has been hospitalized in Memphis, Tennessee. His one of his daughters, one of his kids, is claiming he is a victim of elder abuse. Now he's a victim of elder abuse. Please send out positive thoughts and prayers to that brother. With James Evans, they didn't want a black father on Good Times. They didn't. They thought it was unrealistic to have a black father in the family. See, it's not just that the government took out the black father, out the black man out the family. You got pop culture, TV, Hollywood. They said the black family needs to be broken up. Take out the black father. But the creators of Good Time fought for a black father to be there. Even Esther Roll, I believe, Mama Evans. Damn, James. She fought for a black man to be the head of household. And people don't get it. This has been a process. You look at June 12th marked the 60th anniversary of the martyrdom of Saint Medgar Evers. I said Saint Medgar Evers. Medgar Wiley Evers was crucified, assassinated before his young, beautiful family, June 12th, 1963, in Jackson, Mississippi. Okay? They took him out in front of his family at the age of 37. And you got to understand, they take our leaders out before they reach their prime. That's not, when you're 37, you're not in your prime as a man. That is not your prime. 37 years old. Malcolm Martin, 39. Fred Hampton, 21. It's robbing the crib, robbing the cradle. They killed Fred Hampton, Sr. So, go back 60 plus years ago. What was the image of the black male in so-called society at that time? You had strong, hetero, patriarchal black male leadership at different organizations. You may not agree with their philosophy, their ideology, or methodology, but you had a diverse array of strong hetero black males or black men at the helm of organizations. Like you look at Nation of Islam, you got Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Then you got the guy who helped amplify the message of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, one Malcolm X. Then you look at the Urban League, had Whitney Young, who was, to me, I thought he was brilliant in how he was able to hoodwink corporate America into doing stuff for black folk. Like he was able to work magic. Really, he got more out of the Republicans than he did out of the Democrats. He was picking the pockets of Richard Nixon to try to help black folk, and we didn't understand that. And they took out Whitney Young in Africa, off the coast of Nigeria, I believe. He drowned. Even though he could swim, he drowned some type of way. So I think, and Richard Milhouse Nixon ended up doing his eulogy, if not mistaken. So you had, Philip Randolph, who was going to try to do the March on Washington, I believe, in 1943, but they postponed it for 20 years and waited for Dr. Martin Luther King or Michael King to get on the scene and be clean and speak his piece, spit his spit. You understand? And really, the March on Washington was a farce on Washington. It was not a protest. It was a rally for, I guess, raising the minimum wage. And like I just talked about at the beginning of this, the minimum wage is horrible. In Memphis, Tennessee, when your rent is $1,500, but yet you making $10, $13 an hour. Car note, you got to pay that several $100s. Even used cars you pay as much for used cars now as you do for new cars. That's the new reality. Insurance is crazy, off the chain, especially living in a city like Memphis, got a high ready to smash and grabs and all this stuff. It's not just in Memphis. I went to Atlanta for the Atlanta Jazz Festival. And I was walking down the street, I saw this beautiful sports muscle car. This muscle car had its windows knocked out from front to back to front to back to front. It said, "Welcome to Atlanta. Welcome to Atlanta. Welcome to Atlanta. It's just like Memphis." You know, DJ Quick, yeah, song, "It's just like Compton." Well, I said, "It's just like Memphis." So everybody want to talk about Memphis and Memphica and all that. It's just like Memphis. Okay. And the world is a ghetto for real. America is a third world country masquerading as a first world power. Our power grid is outdated. Bridges are collapsing. Potholes in the street. People are all zone out on all types of social media and all types of other drugs. It's insane. And why are people calling me? Okay, I know why. I'm in demand, y'all. You know, YouTube is tricky. Like they demonetize me over BS. Even though I wasn't making any real money on really, but the fact that they would have the audacity to demonetize me, uh, my content. I'm a content creator. I create a lot of content. Got a lot of content that I have not shared. I got a lot of content that I've done years ago that I want to share, and I'm looking for different ways to share it. But at the same time, it would be nice to be compensated in a way. And I love being a service to our people. But sometimes our people be acting like they're evil. Sometimes my people be acting like they evil, live evil. Okay, we waiting for the man of the hour. Um, Let me say this. I mean, it's because it's about Judge Joe Brown. You know, Judge, he got a lot going on. He's campaigning. He will be on the scene in a gangster lean soon. And I like to talk, man. And it's funny, like I have not been doing shows like I would like to do them. Actually, I've been busy, trying to run the city. But I had a chance to see the one and only Judge Joe a couple of weekends ago. Campaigning was at the Mall of Memphis, meet the mayoral candidates for the People's Convention. Shout out to Dr. Reverend, the Right Reverend Dr. Earl Fisher for his People Convention coming up in July. But I had a chance to connect with Honorable Judge Joe Brown. And Brown does get around town in the city of good abode. And what I found interesting is the fact that when the local media talks about mayoral candidates, that they do not mention the name of the Honorable Joseph Brown as a candidate. And it's weird because, like, why? It's like it reminds me, like, some years back, let's say back in the 2004 presidential race, we had a crowded field, and there was one candidate that really stood out to me, Dennis Kucinich, the representative from Cleveland, from Bone Thug and Harmony Land. It was interesting because Dennis Kucinich did not look the part of a president. You know, he looked like an elf, a Keebler elf, or one of Santa's helpers, or something from the Lord of the Rings. But he had great ideas. He had actually was solution oriented, and his stuff really was feasible to be done. And also, he had a lot of things that could be a challenge, but if we was up for the challenge and succeeded, would have paid off big time for the people. Yes, sir. So Judge Joe Brown, to me, I'm gonna say this. And this is a paid show was sponsored by Judge Joe Brown because there's a media blackout locally against Judge Joe Brown. But Judge Joe Brown actually got amazing ideas that need to be heard, And I told him that much. I said, Judge, what you need, we need a visionary right now for this city. We don't need people that do things business as usual. That what got us behind in the first place. We need a visionary, need a maverick person, need a person that tell it like it is. Cause I tell you, on the streets of Memphis, when I talk to young people, black and white, and this is me on the streets of Memphis, not the local media that don't want to let you know that Judge Joe Brown is running. I meet young black men. When I tell them that Judge Joe Brown want to represent the city, they say, "Where do I sign up to get him in?" Or they'll say, I will vote for him many times over. But then they're shocked to know I didn't even know he was running. Now, these are guys that's into social media, all that stuff, but they're telling me I didn't know Judge was running. Then I have white guys that I run into, professional young men, and they'll say, I ask them about the Memphis mayoral race and what they think about it, and they'll say, well, a lot of these guys are just same old, same old. And my thing is, what they tell what my thing is, I just want somebody who's gonna be a straight shooter, like somebody who actually gonna tell us what time it is, what's going on, really. That's a shooter, and I think it's because we're living in the Trump geist. Like Donald Trump really changed the game back in 2016 when he started telling people how it is and what it's going to be. He really changed the game, and it rubbed a lot of powerful people the wrong way. And I hope people will realize what they're doing to him is just a witch hunt, and that history will be on the side of Donald J. Trump. And I don't want to get too far off the tangent, whatever, but with Judge Joe Brown, he's a threat to the powers that be because he's a man that does not waddle or wade through problems, but he's dealing with solutions. He understands what the problems are from my perspective, but he wants to deal in solutions and he's willing to put his all on the line for the people. And without further ado, I can always talk a lot. I want to bring on the man of the hour, of the moment, the one and only, the Honorable Judge Joe Brown, candidate for mayor of Memphis, Tennessee. How you doing tonight, sir?
How you doing, young man?
I'm good, man. I just it's
In the
crazy
house.
out here, man. Everything crazy.
Judge is in the house. Yeah,
Yes, sir.
appreciate that. You ought to be in public relations, man. That sounded good.
Oh, if you win, I probably could get in there. I think you'll give me a fair shot, Judge. But
Yeah, a whole
I
lot of
just like
stuff
how,
could happen.
sir.
And so a whole lot of stuff could happen. See, it's like I was over on a neighborhood block party
Mm-hmm.
Saturday. A lot of people were tired of getting shot up. The street has had a lot of shooting incidents, so the grown folk decided to patrol their own neighborhood, so they armed up, and things have been at peace since they did that.
Yes, sir.
Some young men, 13, 14, 15, showed up. A couple of them had Glocks stuck down the front of their pants. They were trying to go for bad. Grown folks said, it ain't gonna be like that. I went over and talked to them. I said, hey, look, why you trying to die? Well, ain't no future. I said, yeah, well, I got one for you. I'm going to recruit you. I'm going to give you something for yourself. I'm going to give you back yourself. So I got to talking to them. See, nobody will talk with them. You think these boule folk that they've got running for mayor right now can get out and deal with them? See, they're the ones that are doing the drive-bys. I've been in negotiations with some of the OGs around the town about brokering peace. I did that Bahamas about 12 years ago. Some of the organized elements down there and the government, they had a rapprochement, so there's no point killing each other over crumbs. And they had a modicum of peace for a few years. We need to do that with Memphis. I did it before, but I was just a judge and I was 1 out of 10. Now you can be the mayor, you can put it in place big time. That's public peace. Then bring some industry in here, then deal with coordinated city planning. Hell, fix the potholes. There's no point in everybody breaking cars or losing life. I mentioned potholes about 4 or 5 months ago, a place I was speaking to. One woman started crying. She lost a son, hit a pothole, swerved into an oncoming traffic. 2 people got killed off of that. See, that kind of thing doesn't need to happen. You get an inclement day, frosting or snow and a little ice. There's no sand or salt in any bins, and the weather is given a week's forecast, and people get seriously injured and sometimes die because there's no preparation for stuff that ought to be easy to deal with. Your electricity goes out if there's a sprinkle. The water mains go out. We made a mistake by divesting ourselves of the interest in Memphis Light, Gas, and Water and letting it get privatized. And it's gone to hell. The police department, the morale is flat. Somebody needs to be in charge. We need to restructure the police department, not with their civilian oversight, but with their civilian command, authority, and control, just like the Defense Department. We can bring in industry, but some people don't want the industry in unless they can get a little under the table or across the top of the table. Most all of the people, except one or two who are running, they have used their positions of public trust for self-enrichment. And, you know, I've sworn to uphold the law several times. And frankly, some people need to be in jail. They had a Tennessee Waltz some years ago, a sting operation. Maybe they need a Memphis boogie or something, you know. The solutions people come up with is, oh, well, we're going to appoint a commission or a committee to study this. And then they put some cash in that bowl, and that's just petty cash that's there to steal. You've got, the way I count it this year, about $4.5 billion that are getting wasted because there's nothing given back to the people. It just goes to a select few that don't return anything. There needs to be a calculus, an audit of the city accounts, and people need to be held to the millstone about why'd you do this? Just disrupt it. You say, okay, you're going to allow this gentrification. What are you going to do with the people that you displaced? Did you account for them? Okay, you let this housing be taken down the corridor from Beale Street to Paradise Club. Public housing got torn down. What happened to the people who got displaced? Where did they go? You got the gentrification downtown to the north where the bus barn is. What happened to the people that lived over there? Where are they supposed to go? Okay. People say we need to understand that Memphis depends on tourism for sales tax. No, it doesn't. There's a lot of money. That just means you get an advantage and you get its chance to steal, because Memphis is into real estate acquisition, management, development, bribe the city council, county commission, legally or illegally, and then you get into construction and construction material supply, and the city or the county pays you to build it, and you get to operate it for $1 a year and 4 to 6% of your net, which doesn't exist because your accountants zero it out. So we pay for these people's businesses, and the people get nothing out of it. There's $750 million already committed to converting the football stadium to a soccer arena. There's a thing with the Mid-South Coliseum that ought to be redeveloped. It's going to be changed into what I call Opera House, and you got a limited development over there that'll be under the city parks. You've got somebody that's got a private nonprofit for the chartered purpose of operating city parks. What happened to the city parks department? But they got a nice park on Union Avenue for $2,500, no bid, on a resolution that he and a certain other young lady introduced, supposedly to get rid of a Johnny Reb statue, which somebody involved got paid a whole lot of money per month to store for a few years, and also got a chance to buy it and sell it. And now the hospitals want to develop it. And for $2,500, you got something that's going to have tens of thousands of dollars a month rental paid on it. You got the same thing with property right on the lucrative bluff down next to the Metal Museum. $2,500 no bid. It's worth millions of dollars. How'd you pull that off? That's unethical. You've got all kinds of things that people hold out, like, okay, we need to improve the downtown skyline. That's the most important issue facing the citizens, somebody says. But we can't even go down there because you can't park for less than $20 a hit. Right. And now they want to restrict the parking, so only those people who have a residence downtown or an office space downtown will get to park. What's that mean? You're turning downtown into a gentrified area that will be paid for by the general population that the general population can't use. That area right behind the Peabody, 25 acres. Somebody sold that land to a developer for just $600K. And now we've committed $250 million in developing 28 luxury units and some boutique shops for the enjoyment of the select few who will be there with benefit of the tax dollars. The land bank is almost evaporated because friends with inside connections have been able to acquire the land bank, have it developed by the city at taxpayer expense, or rent it back for monthly rental equal to the purchase price. So, I mean, it's a scam going on. People need to be in jail, frankly. Now, we have another problem here. We don't have control over the educational process. It was an ill-advised, stupid thing for the city council to surrender the educational process to the county board. The county board operates a privatized, profit-making school system under the aegis of Teach America. They got rid of all of the experienced, well-educated teachers about 5-6 years ago. They came up and fired them on pretext and replaced them with people that don't even have 4-year degrees for $28,000 to $32,000 a year to start. Hell, that's poverty wages, and they don't have any benefits. So what kind of teachers are you going to attract?
Right.
Now, teachers need to be paid a lot more than they get, but they do that. The county board has a legal department, a whole staff, but yet they pay $500 to $1,500 an hour to a private law firm to handle routine matters that the staff is supposed to handle. What's that? A giveaway. So it's ripped off. The city needs to reassert control. The trash needs to be picked up. There are things that need to be done in cooperation with the criminal court judges to get the people with community service out there picking up the trash. Memphis used to win awards for being one of the clean cities in America. Now it's a filthy trash can everywhere you look. Up and down the freeways and the roadways, it's trash. Crime is totally out of control, but there's nobody out there able to deal with the children. There's nobody out there to offer them hope. There's nobody out there setting a purpose or a cause for them, and they don't want to live. And everybody's trying to get out of here, and people are spending a lot of money to go visit grandkids. Or when you get visitation with your grandchildren or your nieces and nephews, you bed them down in the bathtub so they don't have to worry about the stray bullets from a drive-by and some fools acting crazy. You got a situation where Memphis is now the murder capital of the United States. It's the carjacking capital of the United States. It's the rape capital of the United States, the car burglary capital of the country. It's out of control because the people that are supposed to have been in charge have not. They sit at a desk. At best, they might be a mediocre administrator, and they make sure that their friends make a lot of money at the expense of the taxpayer, but they have no leadership. Now, I have a challenge to my opponents, which is go where I go and see if you can get back out alive if you don't have an armed escort or without getting your butt beat. Now, this thing I went to Saturday, rough in every area, but they've got peace. Somebody told Bonner I was there. He showed up. He didn't say anything. I didn't see him shake any hands except to the organizers, not the people. He just stood around up front, and that's not how you do it. He was in uniform, and he had a uniformed deputy with sidearm on hip. You know, that really was impressive to the people. And as somebody said, the police can't protect us. We have to protect ourselves. And you're talking about going up to Nashville and getting an exemption for Memphis and Shelby County so we can't even be armed because you don't trust us. And why is it, by the way, that you've got 5 dead people down at 201 Poplar where your own office is and you can't explain it? You know, we have all of these things here. We have somebody holding a state legislative office, and over the last 8 years, she's collected according to this site known as followthemoney.org, $370,000 from a who's who of entities that don't need to have anything to do with the people. Same entities that were trying to put the pipeline through Memphis, Goldman Sachs, liquor distributors giving $11,000 in total and that kind of thing, 12,000, 10,000 here and there. And it looks like somebody's being bought and controlled. So why do we want this? We want something from Memphis where the town is taken back so the people run the town through the governance that they have, not somebody sitting down that never shows except through mainstream media or a staged event. And that's only when there's an election. There's no contact with the people, except if you go down to the Peabody, you'll see them sitting on a leather couch sipping Chablis. Jamal, what do you think about what's happening down on 3rd Street? Oh, past those pink wafers, they're so good. Try that cheese. You know, what do you think we ought to do? Well, it's just, I haven't a clue. Maybe we can appoint a committee. Put that down. Maybe we can do it. That would be a great idea, you know, and just think of the money that people could make off of that. All right, nobody's done anything about, depending upon how you count, 12,000 to 28,000 untested rape kits, and people want to accuse me of being anti-woman. I'm just trying to protect them. And I don't buy in with the Democratic Party's nonsense that men are inherently evil and need to be knocked out of the equation. That, by the way, is Follow the Money. Do not Google it. Enter followthemoney.org into your browser directly. You'll go there, that maroon and yellow blotch there. If you hit X and drop it down, and it's just notifying that they're merging with another concern. They take what the candidates or the people who are the office holders have reported over the years to the state election commissions all across the country. You enter the name, state position, and they tell you who gave them what, how much, and when, and what that person or entity represents. By the way, I don't know why they did it, but they just changed the law. And it's been $2,500 maximum contribution one individual can give to a candidate, and a higher limit for what PACs can do. But they just changed it so that the maximum is $1,800. Now, there's one thing that I find strange. For local officers, there is a very low limit on what a PAC can raise for somebody, but it's 1.5 times greater that a PAC can raise for someone who is running for, let's say, state representative. So to keep everything honest, we need to have a distinction between what somebody raised through or got paid through a PAC, political action committee, after they filed for a local office, say mayor, relative to what they've gotten over the last few years, which may be several $100,000. So I find it interesting. Like Ms. Barbara Cooper, the late Ms. Barbara Cooper, from the same entities a certain somebody has gotten $370,000 from, Ms. Cooper has got somewhere around $1,500 over the course of 30 years versus $370,000 over 8 years. So you might want to consider what's going on there. Blue Oval, Ford Motor Company, is going to be making nothing but electric cars up there. They're going to hire 27,500 people, and we haven't heard a peep out of a single elected official in this city or county about trying to recruit people from Memphis for that, because right now it is not the intention to do that. They're going to be building a city up there outside of Memphis that might be the 4th largest city in Tennessee by the time they get through. And not anything has been said to the local population except the in crowd who has been maneuvering and cutting deals and things like, this person isn't even from Memphis, but the mayor of Tipton County, on inside information, got 550 acres of land that he purchased at, the property rights to at rural prices right in the midst of where the action is going to be. Now, what is the action? Well, California says nothing but electric cars by 2032. The 7 largest car manufacturers in the world who want to get in here because this is the distribution center of North America. Well, they want to get in, but they're not being invited in or welcomed in because there's no under the table for certain entities. And this could be, with the right moves, the Detroit for the 21st century. And there is this mighty Mississippi River that flows 24/7 and will for the next couple of million years. It's not going anyplace. It's got 220-foot deep channels. It's open to navigation by ocean-going ships, and also to allow the usage of platform, barge, and float-mounted hydroelectric generators. They look like large outboard motors. They won't disrupt navigation. They won't intrude with the fish, no more so than somebody running an outboard motor-powered small little vessel out of one of the little yacht or small boat landings they have up there. And nobody's thought about it, but we could have essentially free public transportation here. Matter says it's a great idea, and they wonder why nobody's thought about it. We could sell electricity from New Orleans to Louisville to Chicago to Little Rock to Atlanta, Kansas City to St. Louis. You could start a trend that would sweep all across America to use the hydroelectric possibilities inherent in our river systems. You would not displace people working in the petroleum industry. You would simply provide power without burning up the fossil fuel that could be used for, let's say, plastics. You could use that so we wouldn't be arguing about minimum wage in Memphis and what that ought to be, but you could be talking about $37.15 an hour or $64.29, $132 something an hour, and you can get vocational training put back into schools. You can get technical training put into schools. You can get academic excellence put in. You know, our students no longer have to learn how to write cursively.
Right.
They don't have to memorize their multiplication tables. They are being shortchanged as students, and they're being told you can use your cell phones or your computers, but you know how often does Memphis light, gas, and water go down? What's going to happen if you run out of battery, and then are you going to get cell service? Well, Memphis Light, Gas, and Water has thrown a lot of people out of work. You don't have any center you can go to and talk to anyone anymore. You dial the number and it says press 1, if press 2, you get the 9, and none of the choices are what you want. You got to go back through and finally wait 3 hours on hold to talk to a human, and then you get dropped twice and got to go through it again. And meanwhile, these smart meters that are snooping inside your house, and if you read the brochures, you see that they're advertising your smart meter reads your usage, and it is hooking you up with commercial entities. It may make your home experience more exciting and easier. In other words, they're snooping on you and they're selling their information and making money. Meanwhile, the smart meter requires a cell phone core operated by AT&T that broadcasts, get this, a signal every 20 seconds. So every house in the neighborhood is lighting up cell phone wise every 20 seconds, which overloads the entire system, which is why our cell phone service in this city is so pathetically lousy. And AT&T has not gotten any piece of the action out of this other than what you get through MLG and W. And some clown, thinking that it had something to do with COVID-19, blew up their facilities in Nashville a few years ago with a bomb. So they haven't restored that. So we don't have any cell phone service that's really good, not compared to other cities I've been in recently. We don't have reliable electricity. We don't have reliable water services. We don't have reliable anything in this city because it's been allowed to go to hell because the money that comes in is being spent otherwise. We talked briefly, or I mentioned briefly, Club Paradise. Most people don't realize it. That's the largest nightclub in the United States. The fire department permits that's in the front door of the place says it will seat up to 5,000 people. Everybody that was anybody in black entertainment went through that. So what about the subsidies for the artists and everything else that we have around here? Gorillas, Drummer Boy, and such like. And by the way, I talked to them this weekend. They want to do something about public peace, but they say when they come up with a number that promotes it, nobody wants to buy it, and people don't want to distribute it because it's outside the norm. But they're trying to do public peaceability.
Well, Joe, let me
So,
ask you this: like, you know, you got away with celebrities. You're a celebrity in your own right, but with the
well,
rapping
yeah, I
situation,
had #1 and #2 syndicated show in the United States for a few years.
yes, sir.
Me and Judy at the top in the same CBS syndication unit with Oprah and Dr. Phil, and both of us were beating Oprah every week. But you don't hear that. I'm not exactly a hick, and I didn't just do TV. Hell, I got elected to 2 8-year terms as a criminal court judge, and when I was in there over one 10-year period, they were doing a study. Well, the recidivism rate for felons dropped from the statewide rate of 80% down to just 18 in my courtroom. And people might want to know what I did to drop it. I still have that plan. I can expand it. I had James Earl Ray's case in my courtroom. That's the person that's supposed to have assassinated King, which he did not. I know. I went into it and got the rifle retested, and his rifle is not the murder weapon. It even hints to that down in the Civil Rights Museum now. By the way, that museum was my idea. Chuck Scruggs, WDIA, A.W. Willis attorney, Randy Wade of the Sheriff's Department, Mr. Bobo, who ran the Gay Hawk with no connection to the modern day terminology that goes that way, and Walter Bailey, not the one that is the county commissioner and attorney, but the one that owned the Lorraine Motel. We all got together over a series of weeks what to do with the hotel. It was my idea to turn it into a museum. A.W. Willis, attorney, got all the paperwork together, got it signed, and we went over it at Mr. Bobo's place for lunch. He wrapped it up, collapsed when he got back to his office, and died 4 days later. So his secretary called around to get somebody else to send it in. That person sent it in, didn't do any work on it, but there's a brass plaque listing his name as the founder. Yeah. Wow.
Well, I want to ask you, like, you brought up Drummer Boy and Gorilla Zoe. These are well-known hip-hop figures with Memphis connections. And I know Drummer Boy was trying to do something in Memphis some years ago, not that long ago, but he could not get the support. But he went to Atlanta and he's blossoming. But I want to say this: like, Atlanta is interesting to me because how they treat their hip-hop heroes or people from their hometown, like Killer Mike and T.I. They're actually thriving in their hometown or home area, whereas you got a person like Young Dolph who was gunned down in a cookie shop in his neighborhood who was trying to give back to the community, but I doubt if he had a direct line to the mayor's office. So how
Oh,
will
no.
you help
Yeah.
these hometown grown
And there's
celebrities
more
or
to this.
national figures give back to Memphis? How will you help
Yeah,
them
and there's
help
more to the
us?
Young Dolph story than the media even hints at or knows about. But see, Drake, don't forget Drake too.
Oh yeah, definitely. Drake
They
was
all
there.
try to give back, but there's no assistance in this town because people aren't making money personally off of it. You see, we ought to be subsidizing the arts in this town. We could make this bigger than Atlanta because there's more going on here in terms of opportunities for people to have backdrop scenes and whatever. That's why they shot all the John Grisham movies here.
Mm-hmm.
And We even have a television and motion picture film commission, Memphis and Shelby County, that's underutilized, and some statutory benefits for anybody that does a movie or a television production here. And we certainly have the talent. It's just not used, so it needs to be promoted. We need to get somebody into doing that. The other thing is, it's like this, something that I want to put out right now. The state of Tennessee, the United States government, UT Knoxville, and Ford Motor Company have offerings for students graduating from high school to get into STEM at UT Knoxville, paid for, but nobody here is pushing it or even talking about it. We have grad programs, and everybody that I've mentioned it to that looked into it, just Google STEM UT Knoxville /Ford, and you can find out about it. So everybody that's applied has gotten a grant. So that's something that our clowns around here aren't even bringing to the attention of the public. Now, not
What's their
everybody.
website again, Judge? What is it again?
It's not a website. Just if you want to Google it, just put STEM Ford Motor Company, Tennessee grants AIDS, and you can usually find it. So that's available for graduate and undergraduate stuff. I'm working with the Tuskegee Airmen's Institute nationwide. It's the same program that trained the Red Tails for the famous 332nd fighter group in World War II, the Tuskegee Airmen, and they've got full fellowships for 17 through 21-year-olds who have eyesight correctable to 20/40. It doesn't have to be perfect. C average in high school, good character, and every 10 months they have a class of 20 individuals. When you go through this 9-month course, which the tuition is paid for, it's worth $100,000 and it pays all the expenses. You come out with a commercial airline pilot's license. You're certified in multi-engine aircraft and instrument flying, and the U.S. Air Force and Navy will accept it in lieu of basic flight training. You start at 6 figures in your early 20s and move up from there, which is a heck of a deal. But you know what? Out of the last 3 classes, we haven't had but 3 applicants for the 20 places. So 17 have gone unfilled. And that is a damn shame. There you go, right there. Ford STEM program. So that's not being pushed in Memphis, and you might want to ask why our elected officials are into that kind of thing. So are not into that kind of thing and pushing the devil out of it if you want to have peace. Why is it that another thing? Now, in 2006, the U.S. Department of Justice said that the voting machines in Shelby County were hopelessly hacked and could not deliver a fair election. That was 2006. That was 17 years ago. So 2008, 15 years ago, they put the money up to replace these machines, but it took almost 14 to 15 years for the Shelby County government to take advantage of the money that was already on deposit in First Tennessee before they got new machines, and now they're talking about raising sales tax to pay for it. What happened to the money the feds put up? By the way, that's a federal felony, and somebody might land in jail depending upon the answer. So the situation was so bad with what used to be known as deballed voting machines that even last election cycle, when the Justice Department said there was no significant voter impropriety going on anywhere in the country, 2 days later, the same Justice Department issued their upgrade on the Shelby County status, and it says, once again, we are sorry to have to report that these machines are still hopelessly hacked and cannot deliver a fair election. So, excuse me, this is the 14th largest city in America, and you just said there are no voting improprieties, but now you turn around 2 days later and say that in our area there are. So which one is true? Now, they finally got around to spending the money. I understand they were getting threatened with being sued individually, and now they're hollering about they want to raise sales taxes. What happened to the money? Speaking of which, all of this money goes into First Tennessee, or it did. First Tennessee Bank. There's a reason or a logic that you can see and why they might do that. The effect is that banks can have accounts, but they have to be backed up by a certain percentage of cash. First Tennessee had a lot of our cash on deposit, so they had very high accounts that they could generate. They financed a lot of business, but not small businessmen. There were a lot of mortgages that they held, but not for the ordinary middle class person. It was just those people in the big five: real estate acquisition, management, development, construction material supply, and somewhere in there is once you get the property, you want zoning variances and the city council or the county commission to pay for it. So there's that little under the cover distribution there. So they got a lot of that money, but now First Tennessee is First Horizon, and guess what? It's not even an American bank. It's chartered in Canada. So why are we putting all of our money in a Canadian bank instead of spreading it around to develop other banks and credit unions where ordinary middle class people can get mortgages and people who are into small business can get financing, lines of credit, and such like? And then look at the mortgage situation right now. You're lucky if you are already in a mortgage. Now, if you get a new one, if you've got excellent credit, get a fixed rate, it might be 6.5%. That's not likely to be the case. Your first time mortgage, you might be getting hit between 7.5, and 8% fixed. And heaven help you if you're trying to get into a first time house if you are a young person. If you already have one, generally what you try to do is sell it and move up, but you're still stuck with a high mortgage rate, which if you were really on top of everything with the first one might be 6.5 going on 7%. But what are you going to do with the first one? A lot of people are renting those out because they stand to make a little money instead of losing money, but that doesn't help people to move up. So the housing market is stagnant. We need to do something about coordinating the situation with the churches so they can put their deposits in a credit union that will also get deposits from the city, and that can generate a lot of business opportunities for the people around here. We've got some outright ripoffs where senior citizens have property. They have yard people coming in, let's say on Thursday. They're watched, and somebody sends in a crew on Tuesday, cuts the yard. The yard people show up on Thursday. What's going on? The next week, same thing happens. Next week after that, and then they go down to environmental court. They submit a $1,500 to $2,500 bill, which the citizen cannot pay, and they wind up losing the property. It's put in the land bank, and the same people that came up with this scam get their property really cheaply out of the land bank. So we need the city to intervene on this kind of thing. We need a calculus so that for every dollar that gets spent, something has to come back to the ordinary citizens of this city. We need to have that maximized. We've got a big problem. You can see if you go down East Parkway, you get to Sam Cooper Boulevard, you see all of these apartments going up. Well, some developers have had to go through a year and a half, 2 years of jumping through a lot of hoops with zoning compliance, and others under the table and no problem. They get exemptions and exceptions and code deviations, zoning variances, and they don't have to go through that. So we're getting ripped. So it's the same people. I won't mention them. We know who they are. But the problem is that a lot of them don't even live in Memphis. They live on the West Coast, but they're making big money off of us. So why is that? We've got Firestone, International Harvester, and John Deere have these well-cured concrete slabbed areas that a lot of industry, heavy industry, would like to get a hold of, but they get blocked, so they can't do it. There's a thing about concrete. When it gets 55 years old, it gets its strongest. You can usually tell it because you no longer can crunch it with a sledgehammer. You got to take dynamite to do any significant damage to it, or get a pneumatic tool to go at it. But we don't have anybody with any imagination that runs stuff downtown. In the mayor's office, our current mayor, who has a nickname, Poppin' Fresh Doughboy, he just sits there, gets poked, and what does he do? He came up with some interesting ideas about cutting down street violence by getting reconditioned laptops, not so the children could learn skills or academics, but so they could play vid games. Don't we have enough of that? So when you have a young person who's saying, yo, Judge, what's the point, man? I'm going to be dead in 2-3 years anyway. Why should I give a damn? I can sit on the couch, smoke a blunt, play vid games. At least I won't be, hell, out there getting killed right off. Well, that's the wrong kind of thing. Saying, look, young man, if you feel like that, then you need to recruit yourself or allow yourself to be recruited to a cause, so you can have a purpose. You can look in the mirror and say, hey, it's time to do the right thing, because it's your job to take on adversity and challenge it and knock it down. And in this thing right here, we're having June 22nd at the Rocking Chair that used to be the Hawaiian Isles. It's a new club, been rehabilitated. It's real nice, peaceful. Is aimed at more mature folks, so you can have a good time without somebody trying to thug it out around you. And by the way, the same night, Doc Harrington is having one where he's charging a lot more for the recommended donation, but it's downtown where the parking's $20 a hit. And by the way, they're trying to end parking downtown, so you'll have to park out at somebody's facility at the fairgrounds, which, that's on the city park. Remember the charity, the nonprofit who's supposed to be operating city parks, so they get the money and you get public transportation downtown. And there's a big debate about what you're going to do about people going to the courts. Do they have to do that too? That would be very, very, very clumsy if they did. Now, see, what are we doing to our town? This used to be a safe town. It was prosperity, even though the economy was based on cotton at the time. It used to be that the start of the South started at the Peabody front door and ended in New Orleans at the port. Now the South has changed. The demographics are much different. The politics are what they are in terms of inclusiveness for everybody. I mean, I'm not getting on gay folk. It's their right to do what they're doing. But then you've got LGBTQ, which is a cult. And if you go to Midtown, all of the sidewalks and crosswalks are rainbow. But this is the largest predominantly black city in America. Do you see anything painted red, black, and green around here? No, you don't. I'm aghast at some of the things that go on, some of the floats they have, half naked folk doing strip burlesque stuff. Well, you can't take a child into a strip joint or a topless place. What makes it all right to have the same kind of performances out in public with the children there watching? It's just absolutely insane. So we have to do something about protecting the children. I mean, I don't care if you're straight. You don't need to start trying to groom children as sexual objects. And if there's any sick puppy going, I know this from my 50 years dealing with criminal law in this town, it's pedophiles. They are sick and they exploit children, and there's no cure unless you chemically castrate them, which is a whole different order of business. And meanwhile, they're talking about New York City, which the mayor signed the urban executive order saying he will grant amnesty to anyone who wants to kidnap a child and take that child from a state where it's illegal to do sexual conversion on a child. And you can bring them to New York and they'll deal with puberty blockers and sex conversions and protect somebody from the consequences of prosecution from another state that has sanely said that's inappropriate. It is really bad. I mean, if somebody's grown wants to mutilate themselves, okay, fine, but you don't do that to children. And nobody, whatever your persuasion, has any business trying to push sex of any kind or sensual satisfaction on a child. You don't need strippers coming into schools. You don't need somebody dressed up like a harlot running a New York brothel back in the 19th century coming in to talk to the children. You know, I'm sorry. It doesn't make any difference what you are. Get your freak on in your bedroom. That's your absolute right. I don't care. But we cannot sexualize children. We've got another bloody doggone thing. I went to a certain high school. The principal was trying, really trying. He wanted me to talk to an assembly. I'm walking around the campus with the principal, and this young lady was leaning on a wall, and she had on some knit booty shorts with her butt cheeks out of the bottom, some skimpy sandals, a little tied halter, and a navel ring, big hoops, and tats all over. I said, "You let your students dress like that?" He said, "Judge, that's not a student. That's a teacher. We can't do anything about a dress code." Oh, come on. Seriously?
Yeah, well, Judge, I want to make sure that people know about your fundraising event again. It's elect Judge Joe Brown for mayor. This is a black and white fundraiser ball. It's Thursday, June the 22nd, 7 p.m. Central. Cash App Judge Joe Brown 2023. Suggested donation or donation is $25 and up. Is at the Rocking Chair, formerly Hawaiian A.L.L, 1542 Elvis Presley Boulevard, Memphis, Tennessee 38106. And it's featuring Tony Green. She's a great singer, great comedian. Lester Bibbs, from Memphis. And also Faison Love. Faison Love will also be in the house, along with featured guest Courtney Little. And Judge is about the grassroots. He's about community. He's about engaging said community. He ain't never scared. I ain't scared of you, mother. Kick it. He's not scared, y'all. He's out there in the hood, healing the hood, bringing peace, awareness, and love and unity to the hood. So we need to support that. And Judge, I gotta ask you. You brought up Sheriff Bonner. It was a big ado about where he lived. I think he lived in Bartlett along with Van Turner. He lived somewhere else, but Van had a house in I think Binghamton
What I tell
area.
you about it, that was BS. It ain't the law.
Okay.
And what did the judge say? It ain't the law. See, the original charter said the mayor had to be a resident 5 years next preceding the regularly scheduled election. 1966, the voters voted in a change to the charter which said qualifications relative to residency shall be the same for the city council and the mayor's office. 1996, and I voted on this one, residency shall be determined as of the date of the regularly scheduled election. And they've had federal cases, state cases, local cases where over and over again they've said that 5 years does not apply. All the person needs is an intent to move into Memphis and acquire a legitimate residence as of the date of the election, which in this case is August 5th. Some dip who is not a very good lawyer, whoever he was, came up with the idea that no, it doesn't count. And it's like saying the amendments to the Constitution of the United States don't count, and said it's 5 years. And some morons on the county election commission listened to that and bought into it. I mean, I already have a Memphis residence and I have one out in Germantown too. So I qualify. I wasn't worried about it. But I said straight up, this is bull. And it's garbage, and too much garbage gets put out there as though it's reality. Now, I'll say this. If you want to see what you're going to get, you don't have to wonder about it. You've had the opportunity since 1998 to watch the brand new shows for 15 years in the reruns in your bathrooms, bedrooms, dens, living rooms, kitchens, in your garage, work rooms, in your dormitory rooms, and you see what I'm about. I'm fair and impartial. Even if I don't like you, you're going to get fairness and impartiality, justice, and equity. That's the way I've always run stuff. And that's the way I intend to run the city. I won't take any mess off of anybody. And I will use the city attorney's office to correct some wrongs that are badly in need of correction. I'm going to stop this bribery, this graft, this stealing from the taxpayers. Everything will be up and up, matching what's supposed to be going on. Now, some years ago, I think it was 1995, I was the administrative law judge for the criminal courts, and I noticed that in such capacity, I was also head of the grand jury or supervised grand jury operations, and I could give them direction. So I directed them to look into the accounts and books of all state, county, and municipal agencies within the district, 30th Judicial District. And it was interesting what they found, all of the graft that was going on in the county. And some of it is outright criminal, and some of the people involved have held public office. When Shep Wilbin got sworn in a day earlier, because I asked the late Judge Otis Higgs to do that, I was out of town, or I would have. He got a representative from the sheriff's department at the time to take some deputies down to juvenile court, and they were trying to sneak 2 flatbed trucks worth of documents out there. And when they got seized, I helped go over them a few days later, and it was surprising what was going on. That operation down there was blackmailing a lot of the local politicians and officials and dictating what was being done. So some people with great presence and street cred about they were militant, this, that, and the other, they were getting their instructions through juvenile court, and it was all a sham. So look out for people that are being all militant, but they have liabilities that allow people to control them. It's a shame. So there are some other liabilities too. Some people have been a little too adventurous, and there's some things they've done that shouldn't come to light, or they don't want to come to light, and it's held over them. Now, I got some flack because I said, women don't need to go in certain areas because it's unsafe. Something will happen to them. Well, some of the young Democrats, a lot of them young ladies that don't seem to like young men too well. That's their business, but they got highly offended. And one little jerk wanted to stand up and say he was apologizing for men. I sort of whispered to him that he needs to sit his behind down before it got a little too far. And what happened? Within 24 hours, some young lady was jogging over here at Memphis State. She got kidnapped, raped, tortured, which the news media hasn't put out, and murdered. Turned out the suspect they got, because he ran out of his slides and left DNA, had they tested the rape kit several months before relative to another young woman who had had that horrible thing happen to her, they would have caught him. He had already done time for kidnapping some male attorney 25 years before. I knew the guy. I can see how that might happen, but, it is what it is. But you see, that's the kind of lackadaisical law enforcement they have. This thing with the Memphis 5 and the young man that got beaten to death, there was more to it than the news media had. So some people brought in Kamala Harris and A.L.L. Sharpton and somebody that settles a lot of cases, and they made a big to-do, and the new chief and the current mayor, they tried to converse the city. I wondered if they were trying to get something under the table out of it, the way they were going. But you see, it wasn't even police action. It was personal, and there were threesomes going on here, three ways, and some young men that were not supervised from 21 to 31, then 22 to 32 in a unit that was not bad. Somebody needs to account with why they brought the current Chief Davis in here and why she got let go in Atlanta, what the real truth is, and why the people she was protecting are now doing long time in the federal system for some very horrendous crimes that are rampant in this area. Same problem she was having in Raleigh, Durham, and then you bring the chief in and she gets a gun stolen 2 weeks after she's here because she doesn't want to take it in, chief of police, and it says no guns allowed. Well, you could have read the
Judge,
state.
I got to bring up this. I want to play a video clip as well, but what disturbed me, like the Bonner thing is interesting. Like the media here is not doing its job in terms of really letting people know what's going on. Because as bad as Tyree Nichols was, what really disturbed me actually was the Gershon, whatever how you say his name, Gershon Freeman, the young black man who was a husband and a father who was beaten to death butt naked down at 201 Poplar on October 5th,
I've been
2022.
5 people died down at 201 Poplar.
Yeah, but
Amnesty
it's like, yeah,
National declares
oh,
201
definitely.
Poplar like Rikers Island in
It's
terms.
worse than Rikers, and it's way smaller than Rikers. But what I'm saying is there were
Well, yeah,
20.
but I'm saying we don't need that kind of rep.
Oh yeah, we don't, but it was 20 sheriff deputies, men and women, involved in being this naked man to death, and nobody's really raising a stink about it. But I want to play this clip from the news. It interviewed a guy who was a cellmate of Mr. Freeman, and he has this to say, and it's not getting a lot of play in the local media. There's a lot of people not focusing on Bonner being the head of 201 Poplar, which happened on his watch. All these deaths,
Yeah,
and yet he want to be mayor of Memphis.
his office is in the exact same building where it happened.
Right, it's ridiculous. But nobody's been like them 5 cops been decertified and fired or whatever for the Tyree Nichols. But you had 20 sheriff deputies. Nobody's been held accountable from my understanding.
Before you get into that, let's look at one other aspect of the Tyree Nichols thing. It wasn't contact between the police and a random citizen. This person was targeted. They were looking for him. And what does that make it? Premeditation. When you've got a homicide that results from premeditation, I mean, when I was on the bench, and I assume the law hasn't changed, which it hasn't, that's premeditated murder, intentional and deliberate murder, murder in the first degree. Or if they were going to commit an aggravated assault on him and beat him like that, that becomes first degree murder again, this time murder in the perpetration of a felony, to wit, aggravated assault. So why is it these 5 cops were only indicted for second degree murder? It was a rush because in the 50 years I've been involved in this system, that's the quickest point A to point B, in other words, from invent to indictment, I've ever seen. So was it political correctness that backfired? Now you don't know what the devil to do with it. What's going on? I looked at the family situation. What about the circumstances that young Mr. Nichols was put up for adoption? He got adopted by a couple out on the West Coast who got excluded from the whole facility, from the whole proceedings after his death. Apparently, they sent him back here to meet his birth family. He's working at FedEx. There was a thing there, an allegation with somebody's baby mama there, allegedly, and then friend of a baby mama who also was married to a cop there, allegedly, and then another third entity. And they're looking for him. He wouldn't back off, so they beat him. He had Crohn's disease, and had he not, he probably would have survived, and that would have been the end of it. But for force on force, use of force, they didn't even teach these young guys that in the classroom. They were supposed to be getting it on the job in the squad car, which that's the last place you get it. So I know a commander of what used to be Blue Crush, then the Scorpion unit, now the disbanded unit. He retired early. He says he couldn't get any command authority backup in trying to keep that unit under control. Then when they brought the new chief in, they decided to rename it Scorpion Squad after they nixed the Blue Crush. And by the way, Blue Crush was formed at citizen request to cut down some of the violent crimes. So the Scorpion Squad had the commander also seems to have taken an early retirement because he couldn't get any backup for his authority. You know, S is supposed to run downhill, but in Memphis it doesn't. Nobody's in charge. So we got our new chief all over the place in posters. Memphis, slow down. That's what you're worried about when all of this dying is going on. And by the way, the street folk are a little nervous about this too. They want some peace, but they don't know how to bring it about. They're seeking peace. So a lot of them are coming to me these days, Judge. Can you start this? Because you're the only one that can get us straightened out and acting right. Because we get killed. We don't have any sanctuary. There's no place safe. It's crazy. And then you have 13 to 15-year-old I was mentioning. They are in an absolute state of rage and there's nothing being offered to them. I called in, well, somebody had me on a third party online. They called into a talk radio thing this week. And while I'm waiting the 5 minutes for the commercial break, they had 6 or 7 commercials about programs for young women, not one for any young man. But as I pointed out, it's not the young women that are doing the drive-bys. It's the young men. What are you going to do with them? You just forgot about them. You don't have a solution. You can't talk to them. So they're going to keep doing the drive-bys until somebody straightens them out. And by the way, the police aren't doing anything. They can't protect you. And a lot of the young cops who grew up in Memphis, they don't want to go down into the hoods they came out of because it's dangerous. So you want somebody to go risk his or her life and you don't want to give them any backup, and then you want to disarm the people that live there because you've got an idea that, oh, if we get the guns from the legitimate citizens, the good citizens, that will end the problem. It's character, not the armaments, because by the way, I can tell you this, and the mainstream media won't let you know. The guns are not bought at the gun stores that are used in crime. They're stolen. Sometimes the chief of police loses a gun and it gets used in crime. A lot of times the guns come in shipments with the shipments of the hardcore drugs that the war on drugs can't stop. So what are you supposed to do? We don't need these guns and these assault rifles. Well, first off, that's a misnomer. AR does not stand for assault rifle. It stands for Armalite. The design was patented. Guess how long ago? 1952. That's 71 years ago. It's old school. It ain't new. My old man bought one back in the 1960s, and that's a half century ago. There are a lot around because why are they used in crime? It's the most popular long gun in America. That's like if you saw a Wild Wild West movie, or if you read about it, what got used, a Winchester or a Marlin lever action, because it was the most popular type of weapon. That's what happens. So you're going to disarm the people, but you're not going to deal with the realities of who's going to protect them. Cops can't. So who is? Why don't you take the citizenry and put them to work, working with the police or along with the police with some volunteer training so they can go out and do community patrols? Why don't you set up a situation where you have neighborhood precincts like that skating rink that is a killing ground right now down on 3rd. That could be turned into
Crystal Palace?
Yeah, that could be
Crystal
turned
Palace,
into a substation where you also do vocational and academic rehabilitation. It's a safe place to assemble. You would get the citizens meeting the police or the young citizens. There could be counseling. You've got a constitutional carry thing here, which is if you are eligible to buy, you're eligible to carry. So why don't we have the police set up some ranges for the citizens to go practice on, and the police teach them how to shoot and the rules behind the shooting, so the citizens and the police can get together, breed familiarity and accommodation, and diffuse a lot of the hostility. Now, I went on longer than I thought.
Oh, that's fine,
Yeah.
but I want like you talk about law enforcement, and this is an issue. Like this is a bad optics when you deal with law enforcement, because you had somebody that was in the custody of law enforcement that lost his life in very highly questionable circumstances. And I always want to play this interview that came out some months ago that's been under the radar of a cellmate of Mr. Freeman. And this is what he had to say. And I'm surprised nobody's really picking up on this story, because you know, Judge, that October 5th is also the day to elect the mayor of Memphis. And this happened on October 5th, 2022. So this really should be an albatross around Sheriff Bonner's neck. Everybody should always be bringing this up to his face at these functions and events. What are you doing about what happened to Mr. Freeman on October 5th of 2022 if you want to be mayor October 5th, 2023? So I just want to play this news clip right quick, and we'll get back and get your thoughts on this, Judge. Thank you. And this is We All Be News Free Dixie for the 21st century. I do not own the rights to this footage, but it needs to be played.
New tonight, a man who says he was the cellmate of a prisoner who was killed while in custody at 201 Poplar is speaking out. Investigators say Gershon Freeman died at the Shelby County Jail, but questions remain about what happened. Freeman was jailed for violence charges. Core has more.
Inmate Gershon Freeman died Wednesday evening while in custody at the Shelby County Jail. Family members are saying they got a call early Thursday morning that Freeman had been in a fight. Jacob Wilder says he was Freeman's cellmate at 201 Poplar before his release Thursday, and he says he witnessed this altercation. Wilder claims the inmates were on lockdown for several days and dealing with unsafe living conditions.
They got into it because Mr. Freeman got sick and tired of, being locked down for 7 days straight with no food, no water, nothing, not being able to call his family and his folks.
Wilder alleges that Freeman and another inmate began arguing. Then Wilder says a correctional officer opened the cell's doors and allowed a physical fight to ensue between Freeman and another inmate.
The CEO officer, he called for backup, and that's when the DRTs, 4 of them, came after Mr. Freeman. But they was beating him to death, stomping his head in, and he was screaming, saying, "Stop, stop, stop." Pepper spraying him.
Wilder claims it was nearly an hour before any medical aid arrived.
He was unconscious, no speaking, no breathing, nothing, just laying there. But the nurses, they came and got him, picked his body up, and carted him off the pod.
Wilder claims he was told not to say anything, but feels he has to share what he feels to be the truth.
I'm gonna speak on what I know, and what I know is what I know. Ain't nobody gonna tell me different.
In Memphis, I'm Jay Shakur.
This is still an open and ongoing investigation. We did reach out to the TBI about Wilder's claims. Now, they didn't answer our questions, but the TBI says Freeman's body was sent for an autopsy to determine the exact cause of death, and they're awaiting those results.
Okay, let me say something. I just talked to somebody a few days ago that spent almost 6 years in 201 Poplar, charged with a murder. No bond set. He languished there for almost 6 years at 201 Poplar. Criminal court judge said, "You've been setting this thing for trial over and over again. The court's going to set it for trial one more week, one more time." And he gave him a date. Prosecution, "Well, sir, that's 1 week." So, "Yeah, but you've had 5.5 years. If it's not ready to go to trial next week, it's dismissed." He didn't do anything. They didn't really have any case on him. They just held him there. So that's also a counter to all of the people now that are being let out without appropriate bonds, because they seem to have allowed pretrial release to have languished. They at least checked somebody's connections out to see whether they were likely to return or not. And that system Well, I worked in that system for most of my life.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not exactly pleased with what I'm saying. We have some fine judges now, but Memphis is unusual. 65% of the police department is African American / black. The
Mm-hmm.
sheriff's black. The chief of police is a black female. The command authority is almost 80% black. You have 60% of the criminal court judges are black and female. 65 to 70% of the jury pool is black. So, what's going wrong with our system? See what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
These things should not happen. Retired Glenn Wright, a fine criminal court judge, by the way, is the one that dismissed the charges against the young man that had been locked up in 201 Poplar without bond for almost 6 years on a charge that wound up getting dropped. That is horrendous. That is absolutely criminal. That's ridiculous. But that's what we have. Now, you either have to be in control or you're not in control. If you are an administrator, fine. But you need to have command authority when it comes to the city, the police, the sheriff's department. We've got a new district attorney. We've got new, thankfully, finally, for the first time since 1963, a new type of judge, Judge Tariq Sugarman down at juvenile court. He used to be the part-time public defender in my court for 10 years. He was a fine defense lawyer. I think he's going to make some remarkable changes, but that cries out for some criminal prosecutions, what's been going on down there at that circus. From 1963 to 2006, you had an elected judge who could not hear cases because the Supreme Court forbade him from doing that. Because you know how far he gone into school? Fifth grade. That's as far as he went. So since 1982, he could not hear a case, and the state law, the state constitution is clear. The citizen is entitled to have an elected judge try and hear his case. So in juvenile court, it was in complete violation of the state constitution and legislative law for all of those years, 1982 to 2006. That is 24 years where the citizens got deprived of their rights because the elected judge couldn't hear the case. Why? Because with a fifth grade education, it was deemed improbable that the person would understand the arguments of counsel, which would deprive the defendant of the right to be represented by an attorney. So they hired all of these magistrates and before that referees, contrary to the rules in Shelby County. See, the criminal court judges, chancery court judges, and circuit court judges have to unanimously approve of any referee or magistrate in the county. But you had someone who was a fifth grade dropout got to unilaterally select magistrates and referees with the same authority as the ones that had to be approved by every single one of the rest of the judges. So you let this sixth grade dropout do the picking, and juvenile court got privatized, and a lot of their operation was not for the purpose of administering justice or reform, but was for the specific purpose of generating profit for a profit-making institution. There are a lot of horrors down there, and there's some bank accounts that are sequestered that have been used for inappropriate purposes, and somebody needs to do some federal time. Now, they made me do 5 days for contempt because a lawyer, not an elected judge, a lawyer, not a judge, just somebody doing what the judge should have been doing, found me in contempt because He had to go have a tea time for a golf game and didn't have time to withdraw the warrant on a 55-year-old woman who had it sworn out. No, not sworn out, issued on a rubber stamp, no sworn affidavit by somebody who had stalked her when she was 19 years old and she's 55. And all that time, it was an accusation that she was supposed to be the mother of his daughter. She'd never had a daughter. And she'd been married since she had been in her early 20s and she was in her 50s. So, you know, this kind of horror, I went to jail for that, proud of it, because I wound up winning the case. Somebody should have stood up to that damn sickening circus down there. And a lot of them need to be doing time right now for the horrors that they have perpetrated on the people of this county. They have actually blackmailed some of the elected and appointed officials around here. And last I checked, blackmail is extortion. It's a felony.
Oh, Joe, let me ask you about
I
this.
was court judge. I guess I checked that a lot, didn't I? Oh, yeah. Forgot.
Well, I gotta ask you this: like, how will you handle something like with the Freeman situation, where you had 20 sheriff deputies involved? We saw the video. The video was not released, I guess, when the former
Here's
cellmate
how
was
I
interviewed.
tell you, it's a
Okay.
county matter. I'm trying to be city mayor, but if he was a citizen of or resident of the city and it looked sufficiently egregious, I'd have the city attorney's office intervening to see what happened to this citizen. The city attorney's office, I'm going to sick on the county board of education for fraud. It was very ill advised for the city council to surrender our educational charter to the county.
Right.
But they have a fiduciary responsibility to deliver the education that goes along with subsuming the educational supervision for the city children, and they're not delivering. So that needs to be held to account. There are a lot of things that can be done if you're creative, and I was always creative when I practiced law. I didn't go to a local law school. I went to UCLA. I came out with a damn eye there, and it is what it is.
Yes, sir. Well, I want to. Somebody had a great question. I think that you got an idea about trying to really re-energize the city with a new vision, and it's from Marcia Byron. She said, "Judge, I promote gardens and farming. Does Memphis have that opportunity for children?"
It does. If the child wants to get into it, I think they should be exposed to it, also academia as well. I used to be a substitute teacher in the Los Angeles system more than a half century ago when I was putting myself through law school. I taught junior high and high school. I ran a playground. And well, with two other young men, we ran a playground in the worst school in Los Angeles. It was known as Trinity Avenue Elementary School. Matter of fact, you probably know two of my students. Skinny little 12-year-old when I met him. He's the late singer Barry White.
Okay.
14-year-old playground volunteer who's a smart kid. But he was the last person executed in California. That was Tookie Williams, who co-founded L.A. Crips.
Wow.
And we tried to get him out of the swamp, but his mama wanted that. We couldn't get him out of the swamp, so he became one of my other playground director. I actually was under his supervision. I call him my brother. He's the late Grandmaster Cliff Stewart of Los Angeles. He just became the baddest alligator in the swamp. And those 6 children's books that he wrote, which were brilliant, the governor should have commuted his sentence. After all, I don't think it was a conflict of interest, even if he used to pump iron with the governor Arnold, on a regular basis at Gold's Gym, but he should have had it commuted to life in the penitentiary. He did do some good. So you see, that was more than a half century ago. And building on that, we got an idea of what to do with kids. And we tried to run what the lady's talking about on the playground. We had a radio station, low power. I was the DJ. Mommy-o, daddy-o, this is JoJo coming to you on the radio. We sold hot dogs. We got donated to raise funds for the kids. We got sodas donated. We sold those. We took 200 kids, just the three of us, 20-some-year-old men, downtown LA. UCLA provided transportation, and we took them to every downtown theater free of charge. And the three of us could control 300 kids from first grade to seventh grade so well that the patrons would just get excited. They should have never seen that many children so obedient. Why? Because they responded to what it says here, masculinity. And we exercised tight control. The kids enjoyed themselves. We kept peace. We recruited the whole neighborhood, and we're talking about some thugs and gangsters, but nobody messed with that playground.
So just, I got this question. I had this question too. Like somebody asked, did the industry lie about Barry White's age? Because
Yeah.
Barry is like supposed to be older than you.
They put it up. Barry was quite sick in the end. His legs would swell, and I had the same tailor he did, and the tailor had to put zippers in the lower legs of his trousers because they'd swell up, and he'd have to unzip them to be able to fit in them. But he got pretty sick.
But he is like, he's not as old as they state on his.
No, he wasn't as old as they were. They put his age up to match his voice.
I know I had a
voice either when we met him.
Yeah, cause I got a classmate and she's in one of these big shows right now, big country. You know how this weird like swirling shows, and they got her listed way younger than what she is. Like I went to school. I said, okay, so she's still 30 something. Okay, I got you. Okay.
Well, that's
really in her 40s.
Par for the course, like beautiful Mariah Carey, a very tall woman.
Okay,
my ex-wife and her got along pretty well, and there was a jewelry store where Mariah Carey's godmother used to own the jewelry store, so she'd close it off, and my ex and I'd go in and we'd talk. And Mariah is quite something in person, a very interesting personality with a lot of presence. And she's considerably older than she is. I had a neighbor that used to run the industry at one point, and he said they'd routinely knock 15 years off of the star's age so that they would be more sellable.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, that's a highly weird way. I want to give people a chance to ask you a question. Like to come on here. This is the first time in the history of this platform that we allow some of the listeners to ask you a question directly, but you got a camera, you got to put your camera on. You can't be all hiding and using a fake voice. Can't be no deep fake stuff going on.
No,
So in the chat.
I'm used to offending a whole lot.
I put this in the chat. Y'all could access that link, get you in the back room, and you know, ask a question or share an opinion, and we'll keep it moving. If y'all not scared, don't be scared. You know, it's the judge. So if not, we'll just keep it moving. Y'all don't want to ask no questions.
Hey, you know, I used to be paid an awful lot an hour. You know, get a chance to get a freebie. Hey.
Yes, sir. And also, I want to thank Judge for coming on the platforms, for supporting this, because like I said, we have been censored really heavily on this platform, and they had demonetized us.
Let me say this. That's one thing to do with the city attorney's office, because so many citizens are impacted by that.
Mm-hmm.
The rule is, if you impact interstate commerce or communications, you're bound by all of the rules. And a lot of fools say that, oh, they're private, they can do what they want to do. No, they can't, because they impact interstate community communications. City of Memphis might have to file a lawsuit against Instagram, Facebook, YouTube for violating people's rights under the First Amendment and restricting free speech. There is nothing in the Constitution or any decision ever that says making people uncomfortable is grounds for censoring what they do. When you are effectively the soapbox upon which others stand to deal with free expression, to petition for redress of grievance, and exercise free speech, you cannot censor them. And for anybody who has a problem with that, I call attention to the gentleman in Colorado who ran a cake making business, and he got hauled all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court because he refused to make a wedding cake for a certain type of couple.
Mm-hmm.
Now, why? Because he impacted interstate commerce, even though it was not even a mom and pop, it was just a pop operation.
Right.
So YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, etc., impact tens, hundreds of millions of people, and they certainly have a big impact on the exercise of the First Amendment, which by virtue of its number one status has a hell of a lot to do with why this country does have the positive things it has going for it. So we've got to stop that. See, that's what the city can do. Clown mayor in New York wants to intervene with sexual conversion and illegals and all kinds of other stuff. So we can intervene for First Amendment rights, for doing the right thing. See, we have policies right now that are very reminiscent of the National Socialist Workers' Party. What is the National Socialist Workers' Party? Hint, the acronym in German for that has the following initials: N-A-Z-I. And we know what the Nazis are responsible for in the 1930s, 40s. So we are drifting that way. And if you want to see an excellent exposition on the methodology and what to look for, Animal Farm by Orwell. If you don't want to read it, Google it. There's an excellent animation put out in 1952 by the CIA that is word for word in compliance with the book itself. And what you have is animals that stage a revolution against some humans. They take over a farm. They have a constitution. They write it on the side of the barn. And the first principle is all animals are equal. Well, the pigs stage a counter-revolution. They enlist the muscle with some of the dogs in the neighborhood. They take over, and then the Constitution morphs into all animals are equal, but pigs are more equal than others. And you will see that on a daily basis if you keep up with the news. Some people have more than others because they are, and that's not right. And the First Amendment says the right to assemble and petition for redress of grievance shall not be abridged. And then it goes on to free speech. So there's more to it than meets the eye. Now, we need to start getting more exposure to other concepts and to rightful reporting. Now, I'm not doing this in support of Trump. It doesn't make any difference who it is, because some of the rights that we hold most dear were articulated in the name of some people that were not good people. Miranda rights. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and may be used in evidence against you. If at any time you wish to stop, we will stop. You have a right to an attorney. And if you cannot afford one, one would be appointed to represent you, etc. Miranda was not a good guy. But irrespective of whether it's not a Trump, you like Trump, look what happened with the DA in Manhattan did, or New York, Bragg. He indicted Trump supposedly, in essence, for paying Stormy Daniels a bribe to keep her silent. Now, you have to pay somebody to keep them from embarrassing you. What's the other name for that?
Blackmail.
There you go. Blackmail is a felony. So this clown indicted somebody for being the victim of a felony. Oh, well, the corporate entity didn't report it. Well, American law encourages settlement over trial.
Mm,
So, whatever the merits, one side decided to settle with the lady,
mm-hmm,
and there's a gag provision. So if the corporate entity had been explicit in what they put out on what is a public report, they would have violated the gag provision, which would have been contemptuous and against the law. So somebody
mm,
or an entity got indicted for following the law, and it just goes down. And that shows you how ridiculous things are. That's just like the damn fool that came up with this. You're supposed to be a resident for 5 years if you want to be eligible to run for mayor, when in 1966 they said no. 1996 they said as of the day of the election. And some clown apparently didn't read that, and he wanted to jump out and say you have to be a lawyer, not lawyer. Well, hell, I don't know if he is or not. They say he was, but I don't know him. But anyway, you're supposed to be a resident for 5 years, which is crap. I told you that long ago when it first came out. I said it doesn't even impact me, but it's wrong. But you see, that brag thing is the same kind of crap. I could say an analysis might be in order for what they did indicted Trump with, and he got arraigned on it this week. But I won't, since that take up too much time. But if anybody's interested, the case is United States Department of the Navy versus Egan, EGAN,
okay.
U.S. Supreme Court, 1988. And though they don't put it out, you can get the concurring opinions. You ought to read them. And it says the United States, President of the United States can classify or declassify in any form, shape, or fashion he chooses, because he's commander in chief of the military and the chief diplomat. He's authorized to do that under the Constitution of the United States. And also, in addition, he can withhold from designated persons or selectively declassify. So it gets real interesting when you read that. Quite a few concurring opinions that are also law.
Yes, sir.
When you read whether or not there was compliance, and then you read the indictment, and then you get into he provided the false answer and he lied to the National Archives. Well, that case articulates the point that he would have had the authority to determine that the National Archives were not fit to disclose certain things to. You might also consider that the documents in question were prepared for his exclusive use. If he's
Mm-hmm.
like some people, for instance, President Bill Clinton, who had an eidetic memory, once he read them, they were in his head. You couldn't take him out of his head, and wherever he went, the documents went.
Mm-hmm.
So he puts them in Malargo. Malargo is guarded by the same Secret Service that the White House is guarded by. Maybe what was going on is when he was president, he said, when I leave, these documents are partially declassified, but not declassified to the extent that they need to be published generally. And there might be incriminating evidence in there against other people, say from the previous administration. Now, Fox had a thing where at the beginning of the year they had a moot proceeding on whether or not there was probable cause to believe that Hunter Biden had violated a certain federal law known as Foreign Agents Registration Act, FARA, FARA. And we had as a witness the technician who had not one, but three laptops delivered to him by Hunter Biden. Everything was in order, and he downloaded them and reread them. And there were emails in there between Hunter Biden and the vice president directing a certain individual to go by a family residence and look at some documents, and the vice president had some classified documents at the residence. The Secret Service won't release the list of who visited, but the individual that was designated was in fact indicted for espionage against the United States and was convicted thereof. So the vice president has no such authority to declassify. Now, nobody's looking into that, so you want to ask why. You know, the law is a two-edged sword. It's blind, and it swings one way and it swings the other. So why don't we have application of sauce for the goose or sauce for the gander? And also, speaking of things, the individuals in question are identified. Children all over America are encouraged to pay attention to their government. Children, millions of them probably, are watching what's going on the south lawn of the White House and at the front of the lighthouse. And I would say it's obvious you can't take a child into a topless place or a strip joint, but you can have a strip act in the public, in broad daylight, in front of millions of potentially offended citizens, including millions of children watching their government, and nobody's prosecuted. Hey, what time is that?
Well, you know, they say I want to ask you.
Go ahead.
I mean, it's that all politics are local, right? It's like it's all politics. Yeah. Speaking of the rainbow stuff, now as mayor of Memphis, how will you handle the alphabet community, or like how will you incorporate them? Because you represent the mayor, you the mayor of all the people, right? Including those in the rainbow.
Everybody in this town will get the same rights, the exercise thereof, the same privileges, and the same protections. You saw me when I did this for 15 years, and if you ever stepped in my real criminal court, you saw the same thing. I don't have to like you, but justice is sacred. You get it. And everybody will be treated the same. That means I don't care who you are, you don't get extra benefits that other people don't get. And the benefits others get, you don't get cut off.
Yeah.
But nobody gets any extra because they choose to do something that they are used to getting away with either. I'm not having the police department. See, the mayor's technically the commander of the police department. I'm not allowing it to go around and let adults get naked in places where there are children who should be where they are, perhaps, or should not, but where they can be expected. That's not going to happen. Anybody.
But Judge, like that's a lot of common sense what you're saying. It makes sense to say what you're saying, but that common sense is not coming anymore. Because I know I was talking to
There
a lady,
spoiled brat cream puffs around that got raised under participation ribbons. Everybody gets one. Nobody wins. Nobody loses, and everybody's feelings are protected. Well, I'm not worried about feelings. I'm worried about right. And I don't care who the hell you are. If you're wrong, I'm going to tell you. And by the way, I told a preacher a few months ago, he wanted to know why I didn't come back to service. I said, because last time I came to your facility, you were talking about conduct did not count. It was just belief. You said you could be a murderer, a thief, a drug dealer, and if you just believed, you'd get to heaven. I said, I don't buy that. And it's been 30-some years since I heard a preacher preach about sin and wrongdoing. Somebody's got to. Humans like to hear about what's right, what's wrong, what you're supposed to do, what you're not supposed to do. See, guilt and shame are good things because they get humans acting right. And when you say, oh my God, they shamed him, that's horrible. No, it's not. Take shame out of the question. What's the control? Unless you want Big Brother staring down your tonsils, keep you in line. I don't like that. That's un-American. But they like that.
Yeah,
and how many people there badmouthed the police and talked about they needed to be defunded. Some of the candidates are doing that. So can they have, and they also seem to be the same candidates that want to disarm the people. So if you want to defund the police, who's to protect the people? And by the way, American law is this, the Supreme Court has said it several times. Do you know that the police have no obligation to protect you unless you're in their custody? And apparently they can't even do that. And some of the young
You know,
officers
I
are
heard
scared. I
that.
said, but look, I'll be your boss. And I'll be damned if you'll keep your job if I go there and you're scared to follow me.
Mhm. I heard that a lot of police officers have been quitting the Memphis police force by the hundreds
Yeah,
over a short period of
morale
time. Several hundred police.
that high. Morale is so
Mm-hmm.
low you couldn't even slip a piece of typing paper in between where the morale is in the floor.
Damn. Wow.
That's just. Did you ever see this movie with Clint Eastwood where he was the gunny sergeant and he got the recon platoon and their morale was so low and he got him shaped up, put himself in charge. They hated him at first, then they wound up loving him, and then they follow him to hell and back because
Okay.
it was a leader and they gave him purpose. That's what Memphis lacks from top to bottom. What was it? Pork Chop Hill or something like that.
Yeah, it sounds familiar. I'm gonna look it
I
up
forget
now.
the name, but it's an interesting movie.
Mm-hmm. But I'm gonna say too, like with the common sense, I talked to a woman whose daughter graduated from high school recently, but one of her classmates wanted to identify as a cat, and so the school actually put a litter box where they could do their thing at the school. I mean, these are administrators and so-called educated people with they're supposed to have some type of intelligence, allowing this
That
person to identify with a cat
doesn't
and
that
letting you do what
indicate
they
that
do.
you need to get some mental health types involved in this whole thing?
But
Mommy,
the mental health
mommy,
people are crazy. But Judge, how can you
no,
trust
wait a
mental health
minute. Wait.
people?
Mommy, I want to be a snake. Mommy, please, I want to be a snake. All right, son, as soon as mommy can afford it, we'll have your legs and arms amputated so you can slither, dear. Don't worry, hang on.
It's so. But the assistant health secretary is a man who thinks he's a woman, and there used to be a mental illness 50 years ago.
Physician, heal thyself. Maybe that's why he's in what he is. But,
Okay.
and by the way, you look at a picture of the White House on the left portico, they've got an American flag. Next to it on the left, an American flag. Far right, an American flag, and in the middle, they got a rainbow flag. You can't put a cross there. You can't put Buddha there. You can't put the Hindu multi-armed god there. You can't put a crescent there. You can't put the Jewish star there, but you can put the flag for this cult. What's going on?
Yeah.
Where on the White House, you are adopting and you are honoring a cult.
Mm.
So we have this thing about you can't have a religion that's official. You cannot put a nativity scene in City Hall. But you can put the rainbow in there. Now, is it a religion? Well, one of the recognized religions is Buddhism. Is there a God for Buddhism? No, Buddha was an actual man. He was a prince who renounced his royalty, and he went around helping people. I remember going to a lecture, and this guy was like the 58th removed descendant of the historical Buddha.
Okay.
So at least one formal recognized religion has no God. This is another one that does not. And I'm not downing gay people. They have a right to get their freak on in their bedrooms. But it's this cult that also embraces not just lesbians, gays, and bisexuals, but it embraces these sickos, the pedophiles, and they want to remove age as a factor on sexual consent. It involves these trannies who try to dress like the opposite sex, and that ruins a whole lot of things. You know, birds and the bees, boys and girls 101. The girls talk about, "Who, honey, look at him," you know, in the beauty salon. The guys, "Wow, man, check it out." You know, there used to be girl watching and boy watching. That was an interesting sport. Now nobody looks anymore because you don't know what it is. And humans, human males and females have very distinct differences, but we don't walk around naked unless it's at a resort. So our clothes culturally are supposed to reflect underneath what's underneath, but they don't anymore. So the boys don't look at the girls and the girls don't look at the boys. And the boys and girls don't take boys and girls 101 A and B, and they don't learn how to deal with each other. And if you talk to most adults, they'll tell you probably the most difficult lessons in life are learning how to deal with the opposite sex. So they're spared that difficulty. And it is not cool, because what happens for the next generations? And see, here's the other thing. Yeah, I've got it on my hat, bring back masculinity. But see, here's the other thing. This has been my motto since I've been in high school. It's protecting womanhood in childhood and promoting manhood. In other words, the next time a Titanic sinks, whether it's in an ocean or in outer space and it's going down, and there's a lifeboat situation and something's happened to the lifeboats, the guys are supposed to say, "Ma'am, you and your child have my place in this lifeboat." Now we got folk dressed up like girls flouncing in like they want to know, you can't reproduce. You don't have the prime characteristics. You're faking it. Get your tail out. Put him in the airlock or something. But no, he's not getting a place. He's got duty and responsibility that he shall not shirk. Do what you're supposed to do. A friend had a beautiful granddaughter that I hadn't seen since she was 11 years old. She was in the martial arts. So I was at Lowe's, and it was right before COVID hit. Somebody said, "Uncle Joe." So I saw this very pretty young lady, but she had her arm propped up in a cast with a strut going down to a fixture around her waist. Then I realized who it was. She came over and hugged me, and then she started crying when she started telling a story. She was in the martial arts, so she'd gotten a full ride at a university in women's wrestling, of all things. We paid the tab. But they had a state tournament, so the team was required to wrestle these two fakes. And she said, "No, I'm not going to do that." And another girl said the same thing. They were told their scholarships would be canceled if they did not, and the team would forfeit. So they decided to tough it out, and the other girl got put in a coma for 3 days. And my friend's granddaughter got her arm broken, compound fracture, by this low-down bastard sitting there hitting a woman. Boys should never hit girls, but he certainly did. It had multiple operations to try and fix stuff, and she was crying that if she took the pain medication, she couldn't study. She was worried about getting addicted to it because she was getting to the point where she couldn't do without it. And then when she took it, she couldn't study. What was she going to do? And I just thought that was all kinds of way wrong. And the deal is, if you can't make the varsity, sit your ass in the stands and cheer like everybody else does. I don't mean go cheer either, where you dress up like you're one of the cheerleaders. You get your leather sweater on and your slacks, pretty the cheerleaders in the air and catch them. You don't be prancing with a little short skirt on yourself. It's not right. See, a whole lot of things are being disturbed, and somebody needs to do something about it. It's just speak out, for God's sake. It's not cool. This is not hip. This is lame.
Yes, sir. I mean, but
somebody needs.
Well, you are speaking out, and I'm glad a lot of other people are speaking out and pushing back on this narrative and on this indoctrination that we're facing. But also, I like to talk to you, like, like I said, I talk to people on the street, and a lot of people are fans of yours, and they know that Memphis need to go a different way with this whole situation. And my thing is puzzling to me is that when I see polls conducted by the so-called local news sources,
I'm
there is
not
no
him.
mention of Judge Joe Brown.
I'm not him. See, every
And so
time
what's going on?
I win overwhelmingly. I get somewhere around 42 to 47, 48% in the poll, and all you need is, since there's no one runoff, one vote more than the next highest person, and you win. They don't want that known. There's a
Mhm.
blackout. See, what you hear is, oh, I didn't know he was running. Well, I've been in
Right.
this race longer than anybody else because the late Mrs. Barbara Cooper, who I've known since I met her in 1974, with Title I with the Board of Education, where I met Doc too the first time. And she said, Judge, you got to come out of retirement and run, man. The city is going down a rabbit hole. So I said, okay. So she did the initial investigation. She started chairing the meetings by Zoom that we were having, did the feasibility, set things up, and then she slipped and fell and wound up getting a blood clot and went into a coma. She recovered, but for a little bit, but at 94 years old, she was on a downhill slide, and she was chairing some of the Zoom meetings from her bed.
Mm.
So somebody wanted to claim her, but I've got her text, and other people on the committee have her text talking about who she was supporting. And one individual that wants to claim fame from her, she told him, watch what you're saying. You know, that's not me behind you. And then anti-woman, well, my chief of staff is a woman. So
Mhm.
it's kind of interesting. I've got lots of lawyers, about half of them are women, dentists, all of the dental work I have done, except one guy, that's recent, they're women. I've got physicians, and half of them are women. So, you
Right.
know, what's going on here? It's just they mistake something. I'm in charge, I'm the alpha male, and nobody's bossing me.
Mm.
Not
Okay.
it. So obviously, it's not going to be any woman I'm taking orders from because there's no men I take orders from either.
Mm-hmm.
Don't get confused. I
Mm.
went to jail for 5 days in my late 60s because I was defending a grown woman from being done wrong by that horrible court down there, Juvaru, that kangaroo circus. And now, fortunately, has a new judge for the first time who will make a difference since 1963, which is 60 years ago. It's a travesty.
Mm.
So I stood up to that. First time I made an appearance down there almost 50 years ago, I had 5 clients. I was at Legal Services, and a damn fool 5th grader called me the N word. I went all off on him.
Mm.
And when he found out I was a lawyer, not on his docket, then he backed down. So I've been dragging him in and out of hell to get him to do right since then. That's been almost 50 years. So I've been at war with him. I shut him down 3 or 4 times. Oh, by the way, you like this jacket? There's an
Yeah.
interesting thing about it. Special
Right.
jacket, trying to support something because people are trying to learn a skill.
Mm-hmm.
It says prison blues. There's a certain penitentiary where they're trying to give some of the inmates skills, so they make blue jeans and black jeans,
Wow.
short jackets, long jackets, vest, and loose fit jeans, and then reinforced multi pocket jeans. So that's to help folk get rehab by the time they get out, and that's what I was known for, alternative sentencing. You see, there's a secret that people need to know about the criminal justice system. It's no
Mm-hmm.
longer about controlling crime. What it's about is controlling surplus labor. You and I have said this, but I'll say it for the current audience.
Mm-hmm.
Labor is a commodity like corn or cotton. When you get a glut in the commodity market, the commodity price drops. This is the working wage. So there are three things you do: cut back production, subsidize the producer, and then you store the surplus. The surplus in this case gets put in the jail cell instead of a grain silo. The subsidy is the check. The cutting back of production is all of the nonsense and stupidity, the drop out, bang out, drug out situation, get knocked up too early, too often situation, no vocational skills, no academic prowess, wrong way of carrying self, acting out, making where you live chaos so your community is kept from effectively using the political process for self-help. And then when you get that felony, you're unemployable. They don't want to rehab you because if you get rehabbed, you get right back in and glut the market again. And they don't want Timothy McVeigh to go buy 250 pounds of ammonium nitrate at a lawn and garden store and blow up another Oklahoma City courthouse. Now, what's ammonium nitrate? That is the most common fertilizer in America. You can buy it at a lawn and garden place, a hardware place, and guess what? They use the stuff as the explosive filler in 155 howitzer shells for the Marine Corps and the Army. It's a long pulse explosive. So when somebody wants to give a demonstration, they go get a 25-pound bag from a garden shop, grind up the risotto-looking kernels, which are white.
Mm-hmm.
You mix it with dirty engine oil, and I won't tell the rest of it.
Okay.
Just take a battery and a cell phone and strip the insulation off of the thin wiring, and cell phone activates the battery. It gets hot. Boom. You need something to set it off, but you can make what it takes to set off with what most people have in their kitchen if you get a few charcoal briquets. So Middle East, a whole lot of our youth got mutilated and or killed with IEDs, improvised explosive devices. Well, if a primitive over in Afghanistan or Iraq can make it, the information's on the net. You can get somebody over here in America where all of these people ingeniously can be counted on to come up with things that they make, you know.
Yeah, that's it.
So if you disarm them with the guns, then they improvise the explosive device. And the military has an old saying: bullets kill many, but only high explosive kills enough. So how many people did Timothy McVeigh take out at the Oklahoma courthouse? A couple of hundred plus at one time. Boom.
Yeah, I bet. He was trained by the military. He was a military guy, so
Well, I mean, but the instructions out there on the net, if you look hard enough, or people might already know. High school chemistry, you took that class, it'd show you how to do it. But the bottom line is that it isn't about the weaponry, it's about the character. It's about home training. It's about right and wrong. And if daddy ain't around because he never was around, or he got killed, or he got lost in a war type killed, or in an accident type killed, or something happened, there's a divorce, the society is supposed to stand in. But if the society is trying to destroy him, that's not good.
And also, like, I want to give shout out to Don. He said the movie with Clint Eastwood was Heartbreak Ridge. That's the name of the movie.
Heartbreak, that's it.
Yeah. But also, I'm wrapping it up. How many people are actually running for mayor of Memphis? Do you know the count?
Right now it's 14.
But that they're only highlighting a handful, so that's interesting. So I'm glad you was able to do the show tonight, because we need shows like this, platforms like this, to tell about other options and people running. And also, when I talk to people in the streets, they really want to know not only about how to donate, but also how to help be hands-on with the campaign.
Go to this website. It's up here,
Okay.
jjb2023.com.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a Cash App. It's # Judge Joe Brown 2023. By the way, if you want some good barbecue sauce for the summer, I do that too. It's jjbbbq.com, and it's going to be on the shelves here in a month. It's already on the shelves in the West Coast, selling greatly, and you can order yourself some. I would suggest a 3-pack, and you'll never have had any better. It gets rave notices. It's even health food qualified, and some of the health food places are selling it. So that's service and sauce. But basically, it's JJB in 2023 for mayor of Memphis, Tennessee. Send Brown downtown and take back the town. We need honest, good government. We don't need to be ripped off any longer. The money belongs to the people. It should stay with the people. The people need to be involved in the governance of their own cities. And we need somebody that will inspire them to take charge, to take control, to seize control, to make it right, to participate in what's going on and perceive that they have a purpose. So day after tomorrow, their lives will still have meaning and not be something that is serving them with grief. Right now, I've got a problem. There's somebody that's been a reliable worker around for a long time for me. And he retired as a supervisor for MLGNW, and he does electrical work and also water work. I've got a refrigerator that needs repair, but it's in the middle of my floor because his son in his mid-30s that I met this year got slain not long ago by some mess out there. And he's grieving. Not far away, there's a development that is only where it is because of a zoning variance that shouldn't have been granted. There have been 5 shootings there in the last year and a half and 1 fatality. We've got 680 some families that have lost family members in the last 2 years and a month. That is absolutely ridiculous.
Yes, sir.
And what do we have around here? It says, Memphis, slow down. That's the problem with the city. You slow down so you can look at the garbage and trash strewn along the freeways, and I guess swerve out of the way of the potholes that nobody is fixing. What the devil's going on when your city is beginning to look like the inside of a trash can? There's nobody saying, follow me, to show leadership. The police department is losing members left and right. Nobody's in charge. The city council doesn't have any guidance. They deal with what am I going to get out of it? What are my friends going to get out of it? And most importantly, go to followthemoney.org, put it into your browser, don't Google it, and see who owns the people that are coming to you.
You're going to find it.
Now, I've been
thank you, Judge, so much.
Here dealing with poverty law, Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. I was the first Black prosecutor. I was the chief public defender back in the 70s for Memphis before they lost criminal jurisdiction. I was in private practice. I have the distinction of getting what was at one time the youngest person in the world on death row. I got his conviction reversed. That was Ron Ward, if any of you remember that. I got a stay of execution 23 minutes before he was supposed to be executed. He was 15 years old and 2 weeks for something he supposedly did when he was 13. And I was the last judge on the James Earl Ray case. And by the way, it wasn't James Earl Ray. The evidence that I have would be enough to get a conviction if you had the names, but we have the serial number of the murder weapon. The murder weapon was an XM21. The FBI acquired through invoice recordation, late December 1967. There are memoranda that we got through Freedom of Information Act. It's in the file that indicates that certain known officials, designated officials, were discussing whether or not King would be more dangerous as a live martyr or as a dead somebody that would galvanize the anti-war movement and revitalize labor, or more dangerous as a dead martyr. The same people signed off on the inventory supply of the murder weapon and 5,000 rounds of the ammunition that matches what they pulled out of King's body. And then guess what? Same month King got slain, early April when he got slain, late April, the Justice Department ordered the FBI to return these 5 weapons they got from the Defense Department. The FBI claims they lost one, and they had an inventory and said they couldn't find it. And we have the serial number for the missing item. That is the murder weapon.
Wow.
So the shot came from the fire station tower, not the flop house or the bushes. It was a 2-man hit team. It was most likely recruited from the Quantico Marine Sniper School right next door to the FBI training facility. This is located in the same facility.
Wow.
So, yeah, I did all of that. And then I had the record for the lowest reversal rate in the state out of all of the judges. And then I did that binding arbitration, contractual arbitration thing on television for 15 years. And I got up to be the number 1 or number 2 highest rated syndicated show in America. With me and Judy, sometimes Wheel of Fortune, and we all 3 would be beating Oprah all the time. So it is what it is.
Well,
then
Judge,
because I didn't like what they wanted me to do.
Well, Judge, I want to thank you for being a true profiles and courage for.
That's not courage. That's just doing what you're supposed.
I get, but it's not common sense. Is not coming anymore. But I want to thank you because I can remember meeting you for the first time back in the spring of 2014. You was running for DA of this.
Yeah, well, somebody talked me into that. But
yeah,
see,
but I mean,
not that I haven't done anything that required courage. I mean, I can remember a case up here in Brownville. I was representing a 16-year-old young lady who had inherited 80,000 acres from her late grandfather, and somebody was renting all of them for $250 and getting ripped off. We put a stop to it legally, and we went in to inspect, and a guy named Tom Burrell, who wrote some books, he was into corporate farming. We had to bring in bulldozers to remove boulders and trees that had been cut down to block entry. And I had anticipated what happened, which was a certified order from the chancellor in question. And when somebody had to get on a dirt bike and go to a payphone, we didn't have cell phones in those days, and the sheriff got there. I had a 45 in one hand, 357 in the other, and our side was drawing down with shotguns. On the other, it was a Mexican standoff, and the sheriff walks in there. Fellas, Jesus Christ, put them muzzles down. Put them guns down, Jesus Christ almighty. What's going on here? Sheriff so-and-so over in the briefcase has an order signed by Chancellor so-and-so. These people are trespassing. You need to tell them to get off of this land. Let me see. Move them muzzles out the way, Jesus. Tommy, look like you trespassing. I'm going to have to run you in. Now get on out of here. Hell, y'all want to kill each other, go right ahead. I'm just going to arrest whoever's standing here. We can't have this. Or put them guns down.
Oh, God.
All used to be interesting.
Well,
And that's not only excitement. I mean, you know, hey.
Well, I hope the people will get a chance to really practice their right to exercise the right to vote. And also, they need to seek out the knowledge in alternative means, because evidently the mainstream local media is not interested in allowing people to really have a say in who will be the mayor of Memphis, because they really are hiding people and ideas from the people. Because I talked about Dennis Kucinich earlier. I mean, I thought he had some great ideas when he ran for president in 2004. But when they did the debates, they would never show him on the stage. Like, they cut him out the screen on your TV. You would never see him hardly, if at all. But I want to let people know that there are people out there that are very much interested in Judge and supporting you, black and white, whatever. But they just want somebody that's an honest broker, a straight shooter, and that's going to offer an alternative to making Memphis great again.
Well, yeah, too. There's an existing animus between me and certain high-level ownership of some of the mainstream media in this area. I've
Okay.
told you what it is, but I'm not going to mention it right here. And the other thing is, they don't want me in it because they're scared of what I'm going to do to rank out their little undercover game here.
Well, we needed somebody gonna sweep the house. You know, you gonna sweep the house clean, and we just need some honest people in these places to help. That's really about being public servants and not being robbers of the people of the temple.
We had Tennessee Waltz, which was a sting. Maybe we need Memphis Boogie.
Memphis Boogie. I like that. I love that. Well, Judge, I guess also people to fundraiser June 22nd at the Rocking Chair, formerly the Hawaiian A.L.L, or you can make a cash out donation, Judge Joe Brown 2023. Please, this is a chance for the people to be heard in government, in local government, because all politics is local. But I believe Judge Joe Brown really do have a vision for the city, and that he is unbought and unbossed in his way, because I believe he can actually say no to some of these so-called powerful land developers and people.
I'm going to get some people put in jail.
Okay. Oh, we need some people. Hey, we need you in that place to make those decisions, Judge. I just want to thank you so much for taking the time out.
Honest, good, effective, efficient government.
Yes, sir.
I don't care who you are, you will hold the position because you earned it, and you are efficient when it comes to protecting the interest or advancing the interest of the people, not because you are a friend.
Yes, sir. I really respect. That's why we gotta get you in office. We need to get you in office, Judge. I think Memphis will benefit greatly from somebody like you. And I'm not just saying it because you are my friend. You are more than qualified, but also I believe that you actually are solution oriented, and we need somebody with some fresh new ideas and really some resolve to see them through. And I believe you got that in you to do so. We just need to get behind you. And people, like I said, they want to know how to get involved. When I'm on the streets, they actually, I didn't know the judge was actually running, and how can we get involved? So it's JJB 2023.com.
All right, I'm out of here, brother. I'll keep talking.
I know you didn't have a long day, but you remind me.
Thanks for having me on. Keep up the good work. You're one of the people in the future of the city. And by the way, if I get in, this will wind up by the turn of the century as one of the largest, if not the largest city in the United States, and the most powerful, the cleanest, most law-abiding, and the most filled with opportunity.
That sounds like a plan, a winner to me.
Yeah, it is. So let's do it.
All right, blessings, brother Judge. Appreciate you so much. The Honorable Judge Joe Brown, folks, about to lead the chat. About to lead the platform. So I want to thank everybody for tuning out, to tune in and get in where you fit in. And like I said, this is why I created my platform in the first place. Like, I actually met Judge back in 2014 when he was running for DA, district attorney. And I met him at a place called Ernestine and Hazel's. Some of the best hamburgers I ever tasted, the Soul Burger they sell, but also some of the best live music. There's no cover charge on the weekends. It's an amazing spot. A lot of music legends came through there. But Judge was cool. I talked to him then. It was back, I think I want to say May of 2014. And Judge told me, oh, contact so-and-so and get in touch. He had no barbecue sauce back then. But, I started interviewing Judge back in 2014 after he left his Judge Joe Brown show, and the rest is history. And he kind of like reintroduced himself to people via social media platforms like mine. But it's interesting now. I mean, Judge is very popular. He's on different, shout out to Real Dana or Dana with the Data. Shout out to her and our beautiful sister down in Jacksonville doing the Judge Brown show on Fridays on Blog Talk Radio. Sister Valerie, shout out to you. But I actually started that trend, and I'm glad to be a pioneer. I also started, people watching Dick Gregory reintroduce him to a new generation of folk. And like Dick Gregory would tell me often, sometimes, Ron, when the universe chooses you, it leaves no fingerprints. But I'm a toot my horn and I'm gonna smell my flowers. I planted them flowers. I'm gonna smell them. But anyway, but I hope that you all see the importance of supporting platforms like this because they're trying to really get me off the scene, but I refuse to go. I'm the stain that can't go away in the carpet. I refuse to be quiet about it. I refuse to go quietly or silently into the night. But thank you for everybody who's, like I said, tune out to tune in where you get in. I said tune out to tune in to get in where you fit in. But I'm gonna read a disclaimer and get out of here. But thank you all for your patience, your love, your support. Like I said, you feel free to support the channel or this movement. Sister Betty Jones, I want to thank you. You said, Brother Ron, I want to support you because we need you to get your own platform independent of the YouTube plantation. And I wholeheartedly agree with that. And I know that the best is yet to come. And but thank you to everybody who supported this platform and me over the years. And I'm gonna find other ways to express what needs to be expressed. Dick Gregory said I was the feeder, and I'll keep on feeding the people by any means necessary. So with that said, let me read a disclaimer, and we'll be out of here. And like I said, just stay encouraged. Judge is in the house. Judge in the house. Judge, buy the barbecue sauce. By the way, buy my barbecue sauce. By the way, buy my barbecue sauce. Get in there where you fit in. Judge Joe Brown. Send Brown downtown. Disclaimer, the views expressed by hosts and guests on the We All Be TV platform are not the official views, opinions, beliefs, or perspectives of We All Be News or the We All Be Group Incorporated. We All Be News is an organization that thoroughly believes in supplementing the information narrative that is usually supplied by corporate news entities with those viewpoints and expressions which may be marginalized or ignored for a plethora of reasons. We are about informing the general public on alternative perspectives as it relates to news and information, and letting the general public be the ultimate judge in deciding on how to use said information. Informed citizens are responsible citizens. Thank you for your support. And speaking of support, I always do the Cash App, $ R2C2H2. You can Google Pay, PayPal, and Zelle your support, R2C2H2 at gmail.com. That's R2C2H2 at gmail.com. You can Vimo your support at R2C2H2. That's Vimo at R2C2H2. Also, you can do Apple Cash. That's 901 299 4355. 901 299 4355 for Apple Cash. You can also go on our patreon.com page. That's patreon.com/we all be. Patreon.com/we all be. Could buy art of his art to hang. Go to R2C2H2.com. That's R2C2H2.com. And also, you can wear art of his art. And I'm going to put up the Teespring, our official site on Teespring, R2C2H2's place. And also, I'll put the link in the chat as well. So you can buy some art of his art. You know what I'm saying? Got a lot of T-shirts with my original art on it. You guys, you can see. Sister Thea, St. Coltrane, Dr. King, Robert F. Williams, Jimmy Lunsford, Baby Jesus. It is on and on and on and on. Okay. I put that link in the comment section. But yeah, thank you all. It's been a long week, a long, short week for me. A long, short week for me, man. It's a lot of crazy stuff. But y'all be safe out there. Thank y'all for showing out and getting in where you fit in. What's the artwork behind me? Let me see. That's let me roll it. I think I ain't put the right Teespring thing in. Okay, got two things going on. I think that one is this one right here is like the baby Jesus artwork, and the one behind me right here is something I did in honor of Homer G. Phillips. Homer G. Phillips was a lawyer in St. Louis. He actually went to Howard University. He stayed at the home of Paul Lawrence Dunbar. He was a guest, or I guess he rented a room or something like that at Paul Lawrence Dunbar's home. The great poet who also went to high school with the Wright brothers, the guys who invented the airplane. Those Wright brothers, they were business partners with Paul Lawrence Dunbar. Take a look; it's all online. Look it up. Paul Lawrence Dunbar was an interesting person, but Homer G. Phillips actually was responsible for taking on the city of St. Louis. He was able to secure $1 million bond from the city of St. Louis to build a black hospital, a world class, renovated, innovative black hospital in St. Louis. Unfortunately, he was assassinated on his way to work back in the early 30s, I believe. Was assassinated. Two black men were accused of killing him, or they killed them, but nothing ever came of it, which was interesting. So there was City Hospital number 2. That was the black hospital, but they named the hospital after Homer G. Phillips. It was called the Homer G. Phillips Hospital. Homer G. Phillips Hospital at one point in its history trained more black doctors and nurses than any place in the world. At one point in history, they trained more black doctors and nurses than any place in the world. This is bigger than America. And you know what's interesting? One of my favorite people of all time, one of the unsung civil rights legends, Dr. T.I.M. Howard. He came through Homer G. Phillips Hospital. Dr. T.I.M. Howard was considered at one point the wealthiest, the richest black man in Mississippi. He actually financed the building of the first public swimming pool for black people in Mississippi back in the day. He owned several businesses, but he was the chief surgeon of the hospital in Mound Bayou, one of the first all black settlement towns in the country. He was the chief surgeon at that hospital. And also he built a zoo for black children as well, too. So he was an entrepreneur, a humanitarian, and also he was the Jegna of the Evers brothers, Medgar Evers, whose 60th anniversary of his martyrdom, being killed before his family at the age of 37, was on June the 12th. But Dr. Howard was his Jegna. I don't like to say mentor. And he hired Mega at his insurance company, but also he worked with Mega to uncover what really happened to Emmett Till. See, back in the day, they actually knew there was more than just two white men, two health brothers involved in killing the Emmett Till and the kidnapping. But somehow we forgot about it as time marched on. It's like what Roy Bryant said, the husband of Carolyn Bryant, when him and his brother kidnapped and killed Emmett Till, when they tracked him down into the Delta back in 1985 during the 30th anniversary of the Emmett Till lynching, killing and kidnapping. He said, no, he was back in Mississippi, making his living off of black folks in the Delta, running a grocery store like he did back in the day. But like he said it himself, he said, look, black folks are not afraid like they were in the 1950s. But the problem is they don't know, because they knew who I was. I would be a dead man. So what's the point of you being courageous and fearless when you don't have any knowledge of self or understanding of history? So anyway, I went on a tangent, but also the chief surgeon at Homer G. Phillips Hospital was Henry Hampton Sr. His son was Henry Hampton Jr., the guy who did the Eyes on the Prize civil rights documentary, the award-winning Eyes on the Prize civil rights documentary. Henry Hampton Jr. father was the chief surgeon at Homer G. Phillips Hospital, which was founded through the blood, sweat, and tears of Homer G. Phillips, our righteous ancestor. So this is who I gave honor to, Sister Duckworth. Duckworth right here, or Homer G. Phillips. And you can buy that as a t-shirt or as a print. That's, I know went on a tangent. Also, Henry Hampton Jr. at one point had the world's largest black-owned film company. I think Black Size, what it was like in Boston. He passed away, unfortunately, back in '98, but his archives are at Washington University in St. Louis, Missouri. He went to WashU. I went to WashU, and I went to my archives. They are amazing because, like, what he did was they actually are responsible for saving a lot of our history. You see, they was able to make the documentary because they would actually go around the country to news stations and go through their garbage bins where they threw away invaluable civil rights footage, like all that footage we take for granted of people being fire holes or trying to register the vote and all this other stuff. They saved that literally from the garbage bins of history. Henry Hampton and his people, and what was ironic was that for a long time the Eyes on the Prize documentary series was not available to the public because uh, they didn't pay the license fees on the footage that they saved from the garbage bins. Think about it, these white folks threw away this footage, and all of a sudden now you charging them for the garbage. You thought it was garbage. They said one man's trash is another man's treasure. Um, you know. Anyway, I'm getting carried away. Let me get out of here. God bless you all. Let me put the right. Let's see. Yeah, y'all want to get these artivist art on t-shirts. Let me put the right thing in there. Put the right code. Let me see. Let me put that in there. And I'm out of here, man. And thank y'all for y'all patience, for y'all love and care. And we're gonna do some more shows. These shows are interesting, but please support what we do over here because we love you madly, man. We love all y'all madly. So that's how you get to the Teespring and get the t-shirts, man. Support the arts, support the artists, support us because we all be in it to win it. Keep on producing and pushing and know that we love you madly. One, I think I got it right. Can you see? It's like a heart. Boy, one love, I think. Ta-da.